Chapter 538. After some tossing and turning, Aslan, Wyzak and the other rookies, and Ray Minkai, the battlefield veteran disguised as a rookie, finally stood in front of the training type Xeon. It was precisely because of this MS, which had allowed Zaf to form a strong suppressive force against the Earth's United Space Fleet since its birth, that MS had long been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. But when the hot-blooded plant teenagers saw Xeon, they all had the thought of boarding it and driving it personally. Even Aslan, Wyzak, and the others who came from famous families were the same. The instructor stood in front of the teenagers, looked at the teenagers in front of him, and nodded slightly. Aslan, Wyzak, and the others' performance during this period was very outstanding, and the key figure that led to this situation was naturally Ray Minkai, who was known by the people as the last compatriot of Unis 7. If it were not for the appearance of Ray Minkai, the instructor would not have been able to complete all the tutorials related to the MS simulation driving in such a short period of time and enter the stage of actual operation. But Ray Minkai stepped forward. The instructor weighed in his heart, and then shouted out Ray Minkai's name. Aslan, Wyzak, and the others all revealed looks of envy and jealousy, because, when they saw the training type Xeon, they knew that among them, there would inevitably be the first lucky one to board this body. With this thought in mind, everyone naturally thought that the lucky one was themselves. Yes, Ray Minkai responded and boarded the training type Xeon under everyone's blazing eyes. Sure enough, Ray Minkai will start first. Aslan looked at the slowly closing hatch of the training type Xeon and nodded. Aslan agreed very much with the instructor for Ray Minkai to be the first person to operate the machine. Yes. Who asked Ray Minkai to be the strongest among us? So was Nigal. However, Wyzak, who was next to them, was indignant, but there was nothing he could do. Too strong. Originally, before Ray Minkai came here, Wyzak had been in a competitive relationship with Aslan. Although Wyzak's results were behind Aslan's, he was not convinced and even criticized Aslan's indecisiveness to his face. But in the face of Ray Minkai, no matter how much Wyzak refused to admit defeat, it was futile. Shooting, tactics, fighting, long-distance fully armed assault, and so on, Wyzak was defeated by Ray Minkai in all of them. Oh! It's moving! A series of mechanical roars rang out, followed by the surprised cries of the youths. Under Ray Minkai's control, the training type Xeon slowly lifted its feet and followed the instructor's instructions all the way to the rack where the simulated weapons were placed. Ray Minkai, pick your weapon. What surprised everyone was that, after the training type Xeon walked a certain distance away, he was not replaced. Instead, he was ordered by the instructor to pick up the simulated gun that was placed beside him. This scene made Wyzak grit his teeth. Bastard! Does that guy want to go to the battlefield in advance? As the son of a member of the Supreme Council, Wyzak naturally knew some things. Especially now that the battle situation was getting more and more intense, these teenagers from famous families were afraid that they would have to change their original intentions and step into the fierce battlefield from the path of politics after graduation. And walking in front of them were probably the military school students who were about to graduate, as well as the best among them. This rumor was not only known to Wyzak, but also to Aslan, Nigal, Diego, and the others. Good. Ray Minkai, you did well. Come down. Next. While Aslan and Wyzak were deep in thought, Ray Minkai had already walked down from the training type Xeon. Strangely, Ray Minkai did not return to the formation. Instead, while everyone's attention was on the training type Xeon, he quietly left the training ground under the cover of the instructor. This was not because Ray Minkai wanted to be a deserter, but because when he activated the training type Xeon, an unfamiliar communication was connected to the training type Xeon's communication. But no one spoke to Ray Minkai. After simply playing a certain place name, the signal was cut off. It was as if there had never been any sign of anyone communicating with this training type Xeon. Such a mysterious action and the instructor's silent cover were all telling Ray Minkai a fact. Someone in the upper echelons of Zaft was probably interested in him. You came at the right time. Passing through the clearly empty corridor and central hall, Ray Minkai immediately saw the black car parked at the entrance of the military school. After all that activity that did not hesitate to offend Zack and the others, it was time to meet with the upper echelons of Zaft. The next day, after fiercely reviewing, Zack, who was ready to take the lead in boarding the training type Xeon and perform well, was shocked to find that there was one person missing on the field. A bastard who had interfered midway and was firmly on top of his head. Diego, where did that bastard go? Sick? Zack's eyelids twitched wildly, as if he had a bad premonition. Diego rolled his eyes and shrugged. How would I know? Aslan, Nagori, what about you? Aslan and Nagori, who were also puzzled about someone's disappearance, looked at each other, and finally just shook their heads. Perhaps we can ask the instructor. In the end, the 4 people with prominent backgrounds were defeated in front of the instructor. The instructor did not answer their questions about Ray Minkai's whereabouts, but just kept ordering the 4 of them to return to the training ground immediately. Even though the 4 of them were unwilling, they could only listen to the instructor's orders, turn around and leave, and return to the training ground. However, when Aslan turned around, he saw the instructor looking at him with a meaningful gaze. Could it be? Ray Minkai has already. Aslan opened his mouth, but did not say anything. He was not sure whether his guess was right or not, nor did he dare to verify whether it was right or not. No matter how doubtful the 4 of them were, and how unwilling Zack was, the fact that Ray Minkai had quietly left the military academy was already a fact. The future waiting for the 4 of them was graduation, as well as being deployed on a warship and becoming a part of the fierce battlefield. As for Ray Minkai, who had quietly left the military academy, he was no longer in any colonial satellite of Plant. At this moment, he was already sitting in a spaceship heading to Heliopolis, a colonial satellite belonging to the neutral country of Ob. Looking at the gradually shrinking plant outside the window, Ray Minkai suddenly felt that sometimes fate really knew how to joke. Originally, he thought that he had missed the battle to seize the MS by force, but by chance, he met the highest leader of Zaft, the chairman of the National Defense Committee, Patrick Sala, Aslan's father. Under that cold face, there was a madness that was becoming more and more uncontrollable. However, when he saw Ray Minkai, Patrick's eyes revealed a hint of complicated light. There was joy, there was lamentation, but most of it was unwillingness. Perhaps, when he saw Ray Minkai, Patrick could not help but wonder why the one who survived was not his wife, Aslan's mother, but an unrelated person. Under such contradictory emotions, Ray Minkai accepted a mission from him. It was an intelligence reconnaissance mission to Ob's colonial satellite, Heliopolis. Faced with this mission, Ray Minkai did not hesitate and directly accepted the mission. Therefore, he sat in the spaceship. Moreover, Ray Minkai retracted his gaze and looked at the items in front of him with some emotion. There's no sound from State Zero, but you stayed by my side. After waking up from the darkness caused by the MDE explosion, Ray Minkai could no longer hear the voice of the White Cat, State Zero. Even when he took the initiative to call it, there was no response. When Ray Minkai, who was alone again, saw the personal items returned to him by the medical staff, he unexpectedly found a necklace composed of stars, the moon, and the sun. For this, the nurses who returned the personal items teased Ray Minkai. Yes, this was a gift from a girl. It was Princess Ethelum, no, it should be called Empress now. When returning to Xingyao City, after the 2 giants met, Ray Minkai took the opportunity to sneak to the Space Administration and met Ethelum, who was taking Fermion to tour around Xingyao City. The smart Ethelum saw Ray Minkai's hurried figure and knew what was happening at the port. Your Highness, if you don't mind, you can try this pendant. In the hands of the smiling Ethelum was the pendant that could easily disguise as another appearance of stars, the moon and the sun. At that time, Ray Minkai didn't think too much about it, he just wanted to hide from the limelight. As a result, this pendant was blown into this world by the MDE explosion along with Ray Minkai. State 0, oh State 0. How long are you going to sleep? Ray Minkai picked up the pendant, carefully put it away, and waited for the end of the journey. Heliopolis, where everything began. Unlike the clear seasonal changes of the climate on Earth, the climate in the colonial satellite was controlled by the artificially adjusted weather system. Therefore, in order to maintain a relatively habitable environment to the maximum extent, the climate change inside the colonial satellite was in a relatively stable state. Therefore, most of the passers-by that Ray Minkai saw were wearing jackets, with a relaxed expression coming and going on the street. Beep beep. At this time, a car stopped in front of Ray Minkai. Lei Ming. When the car window rolled down, an ordinary middle-aged man's face appeared in front of Ray Minkai. Yes. Are you Mr. Father? Ray Minkai smiled. The middle-aged man gestured to the back seat and nodded. Yes. I'm Father. Get in. There's information on your business trip in the back. After Ray Minkai got in the car, the middle-aged man named Father started the car. On the way, Father didn't talk to Ray Minkai. He just let Ray Minkai open the document in the back seat and read it himself. An identity card, a document. It was the full picture of the document in Ray Minkai's hand. The identity card was the credential that Ray Minkai was about to enter the facility. But the document made Ray Minkai frown. The content was nothing else. In general, it was not much different from the mission Ray Minkai received from Patrick. But in the details, there was an extra sentence: to investigate the progress of the Earth's joint development of new weapons in this colonial satellite as soon as possible. There was no doubt that this mission was an easy one for Ray Minkai. But Ray Minkai had no intention of telling the truth on the spot. Since you've finished reading the document, just put it over there. Following Father's instructions, Ray Minkai put the document in his hand into the shredder that popped out from under the seat next to him. As the sound of paper shredding came to an end, a flame suddenly sprang up and burned the document to ashes in the blink of an eye. Are you surprised? This is a necessary step for our work. Ray Minkai shook his head and stopped talking to Father. He just silently closed his eyes and waited for the moment to stop the car. Seeing Ray Minkai closed his eyes and stopped talking, Father's eyes showed a hint of approval. Beep beep. When the car horn sounded again, Ray Minkai stood in front of a mountain road. I can only send you here. The rest is up to you. Father poked half of his head out of the car window and looked at Ray Minkai standing in front of the mountain road. I got it. Thank you. Father smiled, but his face turned gloomy. 4 Unit 7. Ray Minkai looked down and said in a deep voice, 4 Unit 7. The sound of the engine gradually faded away, and Ray Minkai's gaze also retracted and fell on the end of the mountain road. According to the information, following this mountain road was the starting point of Ray Minkai's mission. 15 minutes from now, it would be the time for the personnel who helped Ray Minkai enter the facility to change shift. Ray Minkai, who looked around and confirmed that there was no abnormality, walked into the mountain road. Time slowly ticked by. Under the cover of the personnel, Ray Minkai, who successfully entered the facility with the ID card, had been here for nearly half an hour. Despite having the help of the ID card, Ray Minkai couldn't enter some of the core areas. As long as there were guards, Ray Minkai could only give up investigating to avoid unnecessary trouble. Along the way, Ray Minkai had already marked out a lot of areas worth paying attention to. Woo. Just as Ray Minkai was thinking about how to enter the areas worth paying attention to, a heavy roar came from the other side of the mountain. Without any hesitation, Ray Minkai immediately took action. Within a few breaths, he had rushed to a high place and hid in the grass, looking down at the busy road below. It was a huge transport truck about 5 meters wide and 25 meters long. Although the carriage of the transport truck was completely enclosed, from the size of the truck, the goods it was carrying were probably the newly released X series. Wait. Ray Minkai's eyes narrowed as he stared at the back of the convoy. The number of transport trucks was wrong. In addition to the 5 transport trucks that Ray Minkai temporarily thought were transporting the 5 X series bodies, there was a 6th transport truck at the back of the convoy. And the carriage of this truck was not completely enclosed like the previous transport trucks, it was in a semi-enclosed state. As long as the observation height reached a certain level, the situation in the back could be clearly seen. Is that an assault? No. It's an IWSB. An assault IWSB. Ray Minkai clearly saw that next to the assault vehicle, there was a shield mounted with a Gatling gun. Chapter 539. It was nighttime. In a house inside the colonial satellite Heliopolis, Ray Minkai sat at the table and sorted out the various photos taken during the day. Among the photos spread all over the table, some were military trucks shuttling back and forth on the highway, and some were soldiers with live ammunition, carefully observing the surrounding environment with serious expressions. However, among these photos, the photos spread at the top attracted the attention of another person in the room. Ms. Under the dim light, Foss, who provided operational support to Ray Minkai during the day, stared at the photos with the huge gray steel head. As an intelligence officer, he could tell at a glance what these photos represented. Since the Declaration of Independence, the reason why Plant went from the initial predicament to today's alliance with Earth and even maintained an advantageous situation on most battlefields was that Zaft had the first MS in human history and the support of a huge family system behind him. Now, the photos in front of him undoubtedly represented that Zaft's advantage was likely to gradually disappear in the future. Yes. This is the secret hidden by the Earth Alliance in this neutral colonial satellite. Ray Minkai nodded. Although he had some understanding of the appearance of Assault and the other 5 bodies in Heliopolis, the process of spying on the information was surprisingly smooth. Whenever Ray Minkai thought of the process that was so smooth that it was unbelievable, it was inevitable that he would fall into a state of doubt about the secrecy of the Earth Alliance. Foss's fists were clenched tightly, but he didn't smash the table to vent his anger. After a moment of silence, Foss was so angry that he started to laugh. Hey! Even if they successfully developed a new MS, so what? Didn't we still discover such a leaky secret? Ray Minkai glanced at Foss's gradually ferocious expression and nodded slightly. If it wasn't like this, how could Ray Minkai, as an intelligence rookie, obtain such important information so easily? Although during the process, Ray Minkai used his understanding of the situation and improvised to avoid a lot of dangers, it was a fact that the secrecy here was full of loopholes. Right. Father, do you have a way to find out where this airframe went? Thinking of this, Ray Minkai pointed at the photo at the top of the pile. It was a photo of an MS lying in a transport truck, accompanied by a Gatling shield. It was the MS that had unexpectedly appeared on this colonial satellite and attacked the IWSB. This MS? Is there anything special about it? Father didn't seem to notice anything special about attacking the IWSB. Ray Minkai nodded slightly. According to my observation, this MS should have completed the preparation of the weapon system. It may start a weapon test in the near future, or it may quietly leave this colonial satellite and go to the Earth joint base on the Moon. Ray Minkai's words made Foss frown. You're saying that this airframe will be tested ahead of the other 5 airframes? It's possible. This is just my personal speculation. I need more information to know if it's correct. Ray Minkai raised his gaze and looked at Foss meaningfully. Obviously, the identity ID Ray Minkai used was not the limit of Foss's ability. However, when using the corresponding identity ID, the risk Foss had to bear would increase correspondingly. If he wasn't careful, he might expose Foss and even wipe out the intelligence network Zaft buried in this colonial satellite. But when faced with the possibility of the Earth Joint Base putting a new airframe into combat testing, Foss didn't hesitate for long. He only nodded his head heavily. "Leave it to me. Lei Ming, do as usual." "Understood." The brief encounter ended there. In the following days, Ray Minkai followed his routine. He wandered around the Dawn Society's factory every day. Of course, Ray Minkai wasn't arrogant enough to think that the security guards in front of the surveillance cameras wouldn't notice him. For this reason, Ray Minkai spent most of his time wandering around the Industrial College. It's so peaceful. Sitting in the pavilion of the Industrial College, Ray Minkai watched the students coming and going, laughing and playing. Before 9 o'clock in the morning, Foss had already informed Ray Minkai that the fleet led by Kreutzer was about to arrive. Since then, the time when these students could laugh and play freely entered the countdown. Dolly. Suddenly, a small shadow passed by Ray Minkai's eyes. Ray Minkai's eyes moved and saw an emerald-green mechanical bird standing on the stone table, looking at him with its head tilted. Sorry to disturb you." Just when the man and the bird were looking at each other, a slightly immature voice came from outside the pavilion to Ray Minkai's ears. Lei Minkai raised his gaze and looked over. His eyes couldn't help but reveal a glimmer of, as expected, Kira Yamato. To be honest, one of the reasons Ray Minkai used the Shuguang Social Factory and the Industrial College as observation areas was because he was curious about Kira Yamato. It was a young face that grew up in a peaceful atmosphere. Before experiencing the baptism of war, the young man who stood in front of Ray Minkai and disturbed others because of his mechanical pet wouldn't be Kira Yamato, who later became a controversial figure in Gao Da's circle. "No. I'm just curious about it. Did you make it yourself?" Ray Minkai smiled slightly, indicating that he wasn't disturbed by the mechanical bird in front of him. Thank you." Kira Yamato first expressed his gratitude to Ray Minkai for his generosity, then shook his head. "No, my friend gave it to me." "Is that so?" "It seems that he cherishes your friendship very much," Ray Minkai said meaningfully. However, Kira didn't realize the meaning in Ray Minkai's words. He was just a little depressed. "I don't know. Ever since we parted ways on the moon, I lost contact with him." "Is that so?" Ray Minkai held up the emerald-green mechanical bird, then stood up and walked to Kira. "Trust me. Maybe you'll have a chance to see your friend again soon." Kira took Dolly in a daze, but he didn't react in time to Ray Minkai's words. Only when Ray Minkai walked far away did Kira turn around in realization. He wanted to call out to Ray Minkai to ask what was going on, but he was stopped by his good friend, Dole Connect, who popped out from behind him. "Kira Yamato, I didn't expect you to be here." Is there a problem with the person in front?" Dole saw Kira's puzzled look and followed his gaze to the figure that disappeared at the end of the aisle. "No. It's probably a new teaching assistant." Kira shook his head and tried to get rid of the confusion in his mind. Then he was pulled into the teaching building, not far away by his good friend, Dole. Perhaps Kira still didn't understand the prophecy that Lei Minkai made on a whim. Ray Minkai walked through the aisle, walked among the groups of students, and listened to the discussions of the students around him. He found his motorcycle in the parking lot of the Polytechnic Institute. Beep beep. Just then, the communication device rang. Ray Minkai looked around and confirmed that no one was following or eavesdropping. He held onto the motorcycle while holding onto his communicator. "It's me. What's the situation?" Half a minute later, when the communicator in Ray Minkai's hand turned into pieces under the wheel of the motorcycle, it was the moment when Ray Minkai rushed out of the Polytechnic Institute. 48 hours later, A transport truck secretly transporting the assault IWSB would take advantage of the night and secretly travel along the road that was only used for satellite projects to the port. It would be loaded and unloaded there, and placed on a space cargo ship heading to the United Moon Base on Earth. Just like Ray Minkai predicted, the assault IWSB that completed the development of the weapon system would be sent to the moon base in advance for the next step of testing. Foss, who received this information, didn't dare to neglect and quickly formulated a corresponding response plan. There was no other reason. It was the same old plan. It was to seize the IWSB and send it back to plant for the researchers to analyze and reverse engineer. As for the time of action, it was after the space cargo ship left the airspace of Heliopolis. Night fell again. Under the tense vigilance of the United Earth soldiers, a transport truck surrounded by many armored vehicles quietly drove out of the Dawn Social Work Factory and quietly drove along the engineering road to the spaceport. However, they did not know that Lei Minkai, father, and the others who were determined to take down the IWSB had already infiltrated the heavily guarded spaceport and successfully boarded the cargo ship that was secretly transporting the IWSB with the help of an insider. The security work of the United Earth Federation is indeed full of loopholes. Foss and Ray Minkai looked at each other, and the meaning behind this made Ray Minkai nod silently. He didn't expect Foss to be this powerful. Ray Minkai, who originally thought it would be a struggle, was surprised to find that he successfully squatted on the space cargo ship and waited for the arrival of the assault IWSB and the departure of the space cargo ship. Rumble! Suddenly, the roar of the engine reached Ray Minkai's ears. Foss, who also heard the sound, immediately gestured for the team members involved in this operation to remain silent. Amidst the sound of the engine that gradually died down, Ray Minkai heard a burst of conversation and the sound of mechanical gears turning. From these sounds, Ray Minkai believed that the assault IWSB's loading and unloading operation had already begun. Ta-ta, not long after, the sound of footsteps on the metal floor came from afar and echoed in the warehouse. It also echoed in the ears of Ray Minkai and the others. This was undoubtedly the critical moment. Before the assault IWSB's loading and unloading operation was completed and most of the United Earth Federation soldiers left, Ray Minkai and the others absolutely couldn't make a sound. Otherwise, there would be serious consequences. Fortunately, the assault IWSB's loading and unloading operation ended quickly. After all, this was a secret operation. The United Earth Federation soldiers in Heliopolis also didn't want to delay any longer and tried their best to stuff the assault IWSB into this space cargo ship as soon as possible. Creak! Rumble! The complicated sound of footsteps gradually faded away until the warehouse door was completely closed. In this space cargo ship's warehouse, other than the assault IWSBs, there was only Ray Minkai and the others who were hiding in various parts of the warehouse. Ray Minkai made a few hand gestures and asked Foss about the situation, but the answer he got was still to wait for the right time. Amidst the dull waiting, the dark warehouse couldn't see what was happening outside at all. The only thing that could sense the changes outside was the electronic watch on everyone's wrist. The instant the number on the electronic watch changed from 0:59 to 1 o'clock, Foss raised his right hand and waved it forward fiercely. Everyone who was hiding in the shadows decisively rushed out and split into groups according to the original plan. Some rushed to the bridge, some rushed to the power area where the power furnace was located, some rushed to the dining hall and the rest area to take control of the crew members who were resting. Even more decisively rushed to the external communication antenna of this space cargo ship and immediately paralyzed the external communication of this space cargo ship. Ray Minkai and Foss arrived in front of the assault IWSB that was covered by the canvas. Ray Minkai and Foss looked at each other, picked up one side of the canvas, and then lifted it up together. In the gravity-free environment, The huge canvas was lifted up and the assault IWPS that Ray Minkai discovered previously appeared in front of his eyes. This, perhaps, was the first time Ray Minkai came into such close contact with the real Gouda. This was completely different from the feeling Ray Minkai had when he used the Steel Pulla model in the Steel Pulla world. That strong visual impact, that cold and angular steel body, none of them were able to impact Ray Minkai's mind. This is Earth United's new MS? It does look like it. Foss reached out and touched the gray armor of the assault IWSB. Ray Minkai pushed off the ground, pressed his hand, and flew to the cockpit of the assault IWSB. Lei Ming, what do you want to do? Foss, who followed him, quickly asked. Try Earth United's new MS, Ray Minkai responded casually, then plunged into the open cockpit, pulled out the keyboard, and began to modify the control program of the assault IWSB. As the OS program opened, Ray Minkai's eyes showed the light of expectation. A mess. Just as in the original plot, Earth United's development ability in the OS was indeed a mess. It was impossible to successfully develop an OS program for the MS they developed. How is it, Lei Ming? Lei Ming. Foss stretched out his head and looked at Ray Minkai. The OS is terrible, but I can solve it. Give me some time. Foss looked at Ray Minkai, who was frantically typing on the keyboard, and nodded. At this time, the team members that went to control the critical parts of the space cargo ship also sent back good news. The resistance of the space cargo ship was far below Foss's expectations. Therefore, they effortlessly seized the space cargo ship. Is Earth United so confident that this cargo ship won't be robbed? When this thought flashed through Foss's mind, the final destination of this mission had already emerged in his mind. The cargo is in our hands. Change course. Target plant. Chapter 540. Behind the huge meteorite, 3 space battleships from Zaf's command were quietly hiding there. Like lurking beasts before hunting, they stared closely at the slowly rotating colonial satellite Heliopolis in the distance. In the flagship of this small fleet, the Nazca-class high-speed battleship Vasali, Kreutzer was looking at the photos from the special communication channel in his hand. Although the silver mask he wore made the teenagers standing in front of him unable to see Kreutzer's expression, the dignified aura emitted from his body made the teenagers unable to help but raise their spirits. Is that so? After a long time, Kreutzer seemed to sigh and scattered the photos in his hand towards the teenagers. When the scattered photos fell into the hands of the teenagers in the microgravity environment, Kreutzer sneered a few times. The joint action is faster than I thought. Aslan, why Zach, it seems that your request for early service is really coincidental. In the hands of Aslan and Yitzhak were pictures of different steel giants with V-shaped lines on their faces. MS? Earth United's MS. Why Zach exclaimed and looked up at Kreutzer. Under the silver mask was a cold smile. Kreutzer nodded slowly. Yes. Earth United has completed the offline work of the new MS. According to intelligence, Earth United even quietly sent one of the new MS out of Heliopolis 12 hours ago to the moon base to prepare for testing. What? We should. Hearing this, Zach hurriedly said what was in his heart. But before he could say half of it, he was stopped by Aslan. Captain, that airframe should have already fallen into the hands of our Zaft. Aslan's words made Zach, Diego, Nigger and the others look sideways, and also made Kreutzer show a smile of approval. Yes. Speaking of which, in the list of personnel in charge of this intelligence, there is a name that you are very familiar with. Kreutzer did not immediately say the result of the intelligence operation, but instead attracted the attention of Aslan, Zach and the others to another direction. Someone we are familiar with? Everyone looked at each other and smiled, confused for a moment. Ray Minkai. Do you still remember this name? Kreutzer smiled softly and revealed the mystery. What? Hearing this name, Aslan, Zach and the others were stunned. Especially Zach. He did not expect that Ray Minkai, who suddenly disappeared from the military academy, would appear in Heliopolis and pass such important information here. I heard that it was an order from the chairman himself. It seems that Ray Minkai did a good job. Moreover, Lei Minkai had already intercepted the new MS that had been sent away in advance. Calculating the time, the cargo ship intercepted by Lei Minkai and the others should have already converged with Zaf's patrol fleet. After a short pause, Kreutzer looked at the youths who had just walked out of the military academy. Their faces were still immature. Then, now, it's our turn. Aslan, Yitzhak, Diego, Nigger, your classmates have already taken the lead to stand on this battlefield. Do you have the confidence to complete your mission? Yes. Without hesitation, after knowing that Ray Minkai was one step ahead of them and robbed Earth's new MS, even the usually indecisive Aslan could not help but feel a surge of hot blood. Very good. Aslan, Kreutzer, Wyzak, Kreutzer, and Lasty, you are in charge of snatching Earth's new MS, and the others are in charge of covering them. Understand? Yes. The gears of fate were still spinning in their original trajectory. But the gears had already shown signs of deviating from their trajectory. In the dark void, a silver-gray steel giant with sharp edges and a huge Gatling shield shuttled through Zaf's third patrol fleet. Every time it drew a trajectory, it would surprise everyone in the patrol fleet. This is Earth's new MS? It looks like it's the same thing. Xeon's team, who had just come down from the outer guard shift, looked at the silver-gray body that was undergoing a maneuver test from afar. Propulsion output 80%, propulsion system is working well. Energy output is stable. And in this silver-gray steel giant, Ray Minkai was holding the joystick steadily, carefully looking at the parameters in front of him, that were far beyond Xeon's level. Assault IWSB. Assault IWSB. This is the 3rd Patrol Fleet's flagship tier. Please answer if you receive. Assault IWSB turned around, from facing the endless void to facing the 3rd Patrol Fleet's flagship. This is Assault IWPS. Please speak. Ray Minkai exhaled slightly, retracted his hands, and moved a little. This is an order from the headquarters. Order Ray Minkai and Assault IWSB to return to plant immediately. The appearance of this order surprised Lei Minkai a little, but it was within reason. As the only survivor of Unit 7, Ray Minkai's existence was a special existence for Zaft, and even for Plant. Now, with Ray Minkai seizing the results of Earth's new MS, Zaft's headquarters would inevitably want to use this fact as evidence to expose the despicable and ugly face of Earth's alliance. And, may I ask what day it is today? Ray Minkai's sudden question made the flagship tier's CIC stunned for a moment, but they quickly gave the answer. Assault IWSB. Today is CE 71, January 25th. Is it? So it's already January 25th. While Ray Minkai sighed, he cast his gaze at the colonial satellite Heliopolis and in a certain direction. January 25th. This was a day suitable for reuniting with old friends. Unfortunately, Ray Minkai didn't have the chance to witness this moment. Moreover, Ray Minkai also faintly guessed something in his heart. Something related to him. No, it should be said that it was related to a certain title on top of his head. Whether these guesses were true or not, the only thing Ray Minkai could do was to follow the orders of Zaft's headquarters and place the Assault IWSB on the cargo ship. Then, under the escort of the 3rd Patrol Fleet, they entered Zaft's territory. In the Supreme Council meeting room, it was unusually quiet. Under the light that could only illuminate the round table in the center, 2 figures followed the round table, sat on the left and right, and looked at each other. Between them, a repressed storm was brewing. Why do you have to do this? It was Patrick. He is the only remaining compatriot of Unit 7. The middle-aged man on the right was silent for a long time before he spoke slowly. On the left, The middle-aged man with a cold face didn't want to explain more. That's a mission. A mission that only he can complete. It's just a joint new MS. Our intelligence personnel are enough to complete this mission. Why do you want him to perform such a dangerous mission? The stiff explanation made the middle-aged man on the right angry on the spot. Is it? But didn't Ray Minkai do a good job? He had even brought back one of the new models of the MS. Calm down. Sienna. I know what you're thinking, but joining the army is Ray Minkai's own idea. We can't stop it. Patrick looked at his angry friend and said calmly. Yes, joining the army is Ray Minkai's idea. But he doesn't have to and has no obligation to complete such a dangerous mission. No obligation? Sienna. From the day Ray Minkai joined Zaft, he has the obligation to complete all the missions given by Zaft. You're using public resources for private purposes. Sienna's words made Patrick stunned, and then his attitude eased a little. Sorry, Sienna. I was too agitated. Perhaps my approach is inappropriate, but Ray Minkai's ability is obvious to all. Now our technical staff is ready to crack and analyze the joint new MS. This will definitely be beneficial to our final victory in the battle. Isn't it? Patrick's easing of the situation made it difficult for Sienna to continue pestering him. After all, they were still close friends before their ideologies were different. They didn't want to abandon this friendship just like that. I hope that in the future, we won't arrange such dangerous missions for Ray Minkai. He's the only one left of our Unit 7 compatriot. Sienna's sigh made Patrick's gaze dim slightly. He knew. He always knew. Just that, Sienna. Is Lux planning to go to Unia 7 soon? Sienna nodded slightly. Yes. She's preparing for the memorial service to commemorate our Unis 7 compatriot. Patrick was silent for a moment, and then proposed an idea that Sienna couldn't refuse. If that's the case, let Ray Minkai go too. As the only compatriot of Unis 7, I believe his presence will make the memorial service go better. Sienna glanced at Patrick, and after confirming that Patrick was serious, she slowly nodded. Okay. I'm sure Lux will agree. Therefore, Ray Minkai, who had just returned to PLNT and assisted the technical staff in transferring the IWSB to an independent area temporarily delimited for analysis work, was called away by a transfer order. In this regard, Ray Minkai not only lamented that he hadn't gotten used to the joystick of the IWSB, but he was also surprised that he was standing in front of a super luxurious villa. Things were just as Ray Minkai expected. The title on top of his head was still working as it should. According to the requirements of the transfer order, Ray Minkai returned from the factory area to the inner city of the colonial satellite. He stood in front of a building and watched the people coming and going in and out of the building in front of him. Is this the place? Ray Minkai recalled the contents of the transfer order and walked in. Excuse me, are you Mr. Ray Minkai? Before Ray Minkai stepped into the building and asked, the staff waiting at the door recognized Ray Minkai at a glance. To be honest, the red Zaft Elite uniform was so eye-catching no matter where he went. I'm Ray Minkai. And you are? Ray Minkai nodded. I'm the staff responsible for welcoming Mr. Ray Minkai, John. Please come with me. Mr. Ray Minkai. Ms. Lux is recording a song now. Following the staff named John, Ray Minkai avoided the endless crowd and went directly to the 5th floor where the recording studio was located through a smooth VIP passage. Unfortunately, Ray Minkai didn't see Lux Klein, who was recording. This was because Lux, who was surrounded by a large group of people, was waiting in front of the recording studio. She was waiting for Ray Minkai's arrival. Welcome, our compatriot. Seeing Ray Minkai's arrival, Lux first bowed slightly to Ray Minkai, and the crowd surrounding Lux did the same. Ray Minkai knew that this etiquette wasn't for Ray Minkai, but for the 250,000 souls who died tragically in the Bloody Valentine incident. The silent atmosphere froze the scene at this moment. It was only when Lakis raised her head again that time, which seemed to have been frozen, began to move again. "I'm Lux Klein. Excuse me, are you Mr. Ray Minkai?" Ray Minkai immediately saluted. "Yes. I'm Ray Minkai. Nice to meet you, Ms. Lux." "Me too. Nice to meet you, Mr. Ray Minkai." This was his first real meeting with Lux Klein, so Ray Minkai wasn't surprised. Before this, he had seen Lux Klein from afar. She was more mature than the current Lux Klein, and her temperament was more outstanding. It was like she was a completely different person. "I heard that Mr. Ray Minkai is also a member of the Morning and Consolation team?" After everyone returned to work, leaving only Lux and Ray Minkai, Lux looked at Ray Minkai and asked, "Yes. But please don't address me as Mr. Lux. You can just call me by my name." Ray Minkai nodded and tried to correct the way Lux addressed him. "Is that so? Then, please call me by my name, Mr. Ray Minkai." "Harrow." Ray Minkai. Harrow. Ray Minkai. At this moment, Pink Harrow, who had been inseparable from Lux, suddenly jumped out and kept shouting around Ray Minkai. In response, Ray Minkai could only nod his head. Otherwise, the sound of Pink Harrow circling around him would be terrible. "Then, come on. Ray Minkai, there's not much time left before the Morning and Consolation team departs. We have to make the final preparations." Looking at Lux's invitation, Ray Minkai pondered for a moment and tried to raise an idea that was undoubtedly hypothetical to Lux. "Lux, I think the escort force of the Morning and Consolation team isn't enough. If we encounter the battleships from Earth, I'm afraid there will be unnecessary conflicts." Hearing this, Lux couldn't help but ponder for a moment. The escort force of the Morning and Consolation team was arranged by Zaf. I believe in Zaf. Chapter 541. Outside the Blue Planet, there was a huge stone monument that instantly buried nearly 250,000 lives. Unius 7. In the shocking event called Bloody Valentine's Day, it, which was once the agricultural base of Plant, was destroyed. It became this tombstone that forever floated in space, circling the Earth over and over again from the Earth's orbit. A year after that shocking incident, a civilian spaceship, the Silver Wind, with the condolences of all the citizens of Plant, docked above the tombstone to pay tribute to the souls of their compatriots who died tragically that day. However, this should have been a solemn memorial service, but it was overshadowed by a layer of shadow. A shadow that came from the call of death. Da-da-da-da. Looking from space, the porthole of the Silver Wind flashed with flashes of light, and then a black figure fell down with a trace of red. Stepping on the gradually expanding red liquid that dyed the cold floor red, figures covered in combat suits quickly passed through the tunnel and charged into the depths of the Silver Wind. Da-da-da-da-da. The sound of gunfire continued to echo in the tunnel. In the flickering fire, the attackers became denser and denser. TSK. This damn alliance. The bodyguards, who only had pistols in their hands for self-defense, gritted their teeth. Taking advantage of the gap in the attackers' firepower, they suddenly raised their hands and fired bullets at the attackers. "Lux, let's go to the back." The bodyguards guarded the door in front of them, but Ray Minkai knew that the enemy came prepared. The bodyguards' pistols alone couldn't defeat the enemy. Yes, the attack in Ray Minkai's memory happened. Although Ray Minkai had repeatedly hinted that this trip was risky before the Silver Wind departed, Lux still didn't take it seriously. Until now, everyone realized that the original plan couldn't deal with the unexpected situation in front of them. Although the bodyguards were tall and strong, the pistols they carried were not semi-automatic rifles at all. They might even be a match for the attackers with more powerful weapons. The corner of Lux's mouth twitched, but she didn't say anything. This was because Ray Minkai had already grabbed her and was trying to bring Lakis to the rear cabin where the escape pods were stored. "Be careful! Grenade!" After a few steps, the bodyguard's screams made Ray Minkai turn around abruptly and block Lux, who couldn't react in time. Boom! The next second, the roar of an explosion swept across the area. The pungent smell of gunpowder, the buzzing noises caused by the explosions, and the bright red floating in front of her eyes under the microgravity were all deeply stimulating Lakis's senses. "Let's go!" In the buzzing noise, Lux seemed to hear Rei Minkai's voice. Looking up, Lux saw a trace of blood at the corner of Rei Minkai's mouth. Under Lux's gaze, Rei Minkai only raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, then pulled Lux up again and continued to walk to the back cabin. Before leaving, Lux subconsciously turned around and looked behind her. She saw the bodyguards lying on the ground. Among them, some of the bodyguards who could barely move but whose faces were covered in blood shouted loudly, "Miss Lux, don't worry about us. Quickly follow Mr. Rei Minkai." Tot-a-tot. The gunshots continued. Even though Rei Minkai brought Lux away from the tunnel that had become a battlefield, she could still hear the buzzing and gunshots mixed with the sounds of death. Lux gritted her teeth and tried to shake off Rei Minkai's hand, but she couldn't do so. "Sorry, Miss Lux. The opponent isn't someone who can be moved with words." They came prepared. Rei Minkai, who was walking in front, felt Lux's resistance and naturally understood what Lux wanted to do. But, the buzzing noise in Lux's ears gradually faded, but the gunshots became clearer. "Be careful!" Suddenly, Lux's vision turned black as she was pushed into the tunnel by Rei Minkai. Tot-a-tat-tat! A series of gunshots whizzed past. Enemies also appeared in the tunnel leading to the back cabin. After inadvertently seeing the bullet wound on Rei Minkai's arm, Lux finally accepted the reality in front of her. The attackers were here to take her life. Rei Minkai's brows were tightly knitted. He protected Lux with one hand and took out a pistol from his waist with the other. After shooting down the attackers who rushed to the middle of the tunnel, he ran into another tunnel with Lux. Fortunately, before the silver wind set off, Rei Minkai had forced himself to memorize the escape routes of this spaceship. Although Rei Minkai didn't know how much he could memorize, the situation in front of him made Rei Minkai rejoice. Even if Rei Minkai's firepower was far inferior to the attackers who came prepared, Rei Minkai had a slight advantage over the attackers in terms of familiarity with this spaceship. Boom! A violent tremor swept over, causing the careless Lux to fall. Fortunately, Rei Minkai reacted in time and shifted his feet, using himself as a meat cushion in front of Lakis, preventing her from being smashed by the cold wall and bleeding profusely. "Lux, we need to get to the escape pod immediately. The enemy is probably using heavy firepower." Although he had a soft woman in his arms, Rei Minkai was still clear-headed. The reason why the silver wind would shake so violently and engulf the entire spaceship was probably because the attackers used heavy firepower. Rei Minkai's guess was correct. However, in reality, there were some discrepancies with Rei Minkai's guess. It was true that the attackers used heavy firepower. However, the attackers' heavy firepower wasn't from weapons such as RPGs. It was figures shouting the slogan, "Give me the power to revolutionize the world," withstanding the attacks of the bodyguards, rushed into the tunnel that the bodyguards had been guarding. Then, a terrifying explosion erupted. Amidst the explosion, the Silver Wind's hull was blasted open. The sudden imbalance of air pressure sucked the bodyguards and some of the attackers into the void, ending the battle. Amidst the occasional tremors, Lux saw Rei Minkai, who was leading the way, cautiously observing the surroundings, but didn't say anything. Right now, she knew that the only thing she could do was to remain silent and follow closely behind Rei Minkai, until this sudden attack ended and they arrived safely. In the empty tunnel, a few figures flitted past quickly, seemingly searching for Rei Minkai and Lux's traces. "It's over. Lux, this way." Rei Minkai looked at the figures disappearing at the end of the tunnel and let out a sigh of relief. As long as they walked past the tunnel in front of them, they would be at the location of the escape pod. Let's go. The following operation went smoothly. It seemed that the attackers had already searched this area and wouldn't return in a short period of time. This also gave Ray Minkai and Lux a chance to retreat. Lux, you go in first. I'll come back later. Originally, Ray Minkai wanted to follow Lux into the escape pod. However, when he saw his red sleeves, he stopped. Ray Minkai, you? Lux went into a daze, then immediately thought that Ray Minkai might stay behind like those bodyguards. Ray Minkai smiled slightly and shook his head. No, Lux. I'll be there soon. After saying that, Lei Minkai turned around and tore off the red uniform that represented the elite Zaft pilot he was wearing. He casually changed into someone else's clothes that floated to his side. If he continued to wear the Zaft red coat, Lei Minkai would probably be locked up by the Archangel crew who were scared out of their wits by Kreutzer. Furthermore, after quickly changing his clothes, Ray Minkai took out the pendant of the star, moon, and sun trinity from the red shirt's pocket. Maybe I need to get Lux to disguise herself. Ta. At this moment, a series of messy footsteps came from the end of the tunnel. It's the attackers. We've been discovered. When Ray Minkai heard the footsteps, he didn't dare to delay and immediately turned around. Under Lux's relieved gaze, Ray Minkai returned to the escape pod and raised his hand to close the door. However, before Ray Minkai and Lux could rejoice, an even more intense and terrifying tremor swept over. In an instant, the escape pod was turned upside down. In order to prevent Lux from hitting her head and bleeding, Ray Minkai once again pulled Lux into his arms and protected her tightly. Meanwhile, the outside of the escape pod had already turned into a sea of fire. It was a hellish scene. The Silver Wind, which served as the mourning and consolation ship for the bloody Valentine's Day incident not long ago, suddenly exploded. In the turbulent sea of fire that tore apart the hull of the ship, this spaceship that was supposed to comfort the souls of the dead became a new member of this sad plant. The tumbling sea of fire and the explosive energy that tore everything apart dragged this spaceship and the humans who were still on it, regardless of camp or identity, into an irrecoverable hell. Beep 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 beep. Amidst the ear-piercing and urgent warning, Ray Minkai, who slowly opened his eyes, saw a flashing red light. Just as he was about to reach out to turn off the warning system, he was stopped by a burst of pain. Ray Minkai, are you okay? In the flashing red light, Lux looked up and saw Ray Minkai's furrowed brows, then turned back to look at Ray Minkai's sleeves that were still stained red by his wounds, even though he had changed into casual clothes. No. I'm fine. It's just some superficial wounds. Lux, you've changed your position slightly. I want to see the state of the escape pod. Ray Minkai shook his head and motioned for Lux to change positions with him. He then raised his hand to turn off the escape pod's warning system. After a round of inspection, Ray Minkai felt very lucky. Other than the light system, the escape pod's other systems were all intact. However, the current situation was not considered lucky. This was because the rescue light system that allowed the escape pod's location to be known by the outside world among the countless wreckage that separated from Unus 7 had been damaged. After losing this relatively safe method of requesting help, Ray Minkai and Lux were left with a rather risky method of requesting help. That was to actively activate the rescue signal and let the outside world know the location of the escape pod so that Ray Minkai and Lux could be saved. However, at this moment, Ray Minkai had no way of knowing the situation outside the escape pod. I'm afraid that the Silver Wind has met with mishap, Lux said faintly. Ray Minkai nodded silently. Then, I'll leave everything to you, Ray Minkai. What Ray Minkai did not expect was that Lux would make such a quick decision. The moment she realized that the Silver Wind had met with mishap, Lux actually handed her safety over to Ray Minkai. This is the Silver Wind. Ruth calling Miss Lux. Ruth calling Miss Lux. Please reply if you copy. Before Ray Minkai could reply, a communication from the International Public Channel suddenly rang. It's Ruth. Is she okay? Lux exclaimed and subconsciously wanted to press the communication button, but her hand was caught by Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai did not say anything and only shook his head with a solemn expression. His eyes were full of vigilance. Seeing this, Lux hesitated for a moment, but still retracted her right hand and looked at Ray Minkai quietly. Just like what she said just now, she would leave everything to Ray Minkai. Although she wanted to reply to the other party out of impulse, Lux, who had calmed down, understood that her actions were a little rash. "Tsk. Kai, you've saved me a lot of trouble this time." Lux did not know. The reason why Ray Minkai stopped Lux just now was because a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. "State 0. Where are you now? Can you come over?" "I can't. The MDE bomb from before caused me to be seriously injured. Being able to chat with you now is the limit of what I can do for now." White Cat State Zero's voice echoed in Ray Minkai's mind for a long time. "Well, come to think of it, there are a group of people watching you from outside. Don't reply. As for when to call for help, let me do it. Understood? I'll leave it to you. State 0. Although White Cat State 0 could not provide support, being able to see the situation outside was already the biggest help at the moment. "You should think about how to help your little princess hide her identity. Almost everyone around here is your enemy, isn't it?" White Cat State Zero's voice faded away, and Ray Minkai subconsciously held the pendant in his hand. "Lux, I'll lend you this pendant temporarily." Lux looked over and saw that Ray Minkai had a pendant with stars, moon, and sun on it. This is a magical pendant. See, E71, February 2nd, 18:00 p.m. A sudden emergency message sent all the patrol fleets stationed within Plant's territory into the highest state of alert. At the same time, a small white spaceship with the highest priority communication identification code issued by Zaft headquarters quickly passed through the readjusted defense line and silently slid into Plant's capital, April City. The sound of hurried running could be heard from the entrance of the hospital. A red figure knocked down 3 carts and 4 medical staff. Panting, the figure finally arrived at a ward guarded by many soldiers. The 2 most powerful people in Plant, Patrick Serra and Siegel Klein, were standing at the door. "You're here, Aslan." Lux was seriously injured by the assassination team sent by the Earth Alliance. Everyone on the Silver Wind, including our compatriot Ray Minkai, died together with the assassination team in order to protect Lux. Standing in front of the ward and looking at his son who was panting, Patrick Sala said a shocking fact with a cold face. Chapter 542. Above the wandering Unus 7, the Archangel was hiding behind a large piece of wreckage in fear, relying on the shadow behind the wreckage to hide itself. And under the shadow of the Archangel, there were the mobile work capsules equipped by the Earth Alliance Army, Lars Mist. Lars Mist, which was not even a MA, kept shuttling back and forth between the Archangel and the main body wreckage of Unus 7 below, collecting the remaining materials and frozen drinking water left inside the main body wreckage of Unus 7 and transporting them back to the Archangel. In some ways, this kind of behavior might not be a pleasant thing to do. But this was also because the Archangel was forced to set off in an emergency without carrying a large number of materials after the colonial satellite battle. Not to mention the ammunition reserves that could provide protection for the Archangel and allow the attack on the Gauda to resist the pursuers on the battlefield. In order to solve the urgent need, the people on the Archangel could only make the decision to collect materials in this huge space tomb. However, as the empty material reserves of the Archangel were gradually replenished, Bucky Lulu, the deputy captain, was not happy. Originally, the attack on the Gauda was driven by a civilian, which made Bucky Lulu, who was born in a traditional military family, very dissatisfied. Now, Kira, who drove the attack on the Gauda, brought back the escape capsules of unknown origin again and again. Although, in the case of encountering an escape capsule, whether it was moral or international practice, it was necessary to rescue them. However, Bakiliela had a lot of complaints about Kira's decision to bring back the escape pod without even saying a word to them. "It seems that you really like to pick up things." All the dissatisfaction in Bucky Lulu's heart turned into this sentence. In this regard, Kira was speechless. Margaret, who was standing next to him, couldn't interrupt. After all, this new captain was a newbie who was forced to do something beyond her abilities. "It can be opened." At this time, Captain Kijero Madrick, who was cracking the opening program of the escape capsule, made a gesture, and at the same time, the atmosphere here became tense. When several armed soldiers raised their guns and aimed at the hatch of the escape capsule, Kijero Madrick's fingers moved and started the cracking program. Click! After the sound of the door lock being opened, the hatch of the escape capsule opened. However, behind the slowly opening hatch was a scarf stained with blood. As soon as the dazzling red appeared, the soldiers holding the guns suddenly became nervous, and their fingers on the trigger tightened. "Stop! Put down the gun!" At this critical moment, Margaret, who had just become the captain and didn't have much presence, suddenly stopped the soldiers' movements. "Ha! This welcome ceremony is really warm." Is this kind of welcome ceremony popular in the Joint Army? As soon as Margaret's voice died, and his clothes were stained, walked out of the escape capsule of the Archangel, and his clothes were stained. "You." Bucky Lulu's expression froze, and she subconsciously wanted to scold the man who didn't know what was good for him, but she was interrupted by Margaret again. "I'm the captain of this battleship, Margaret Lamias. Please rest assured. You're safe." Margaret Lamias, the rare female captain of the Gauda series, stood in front of him just like that. Ray Minkai mocked himself a few times in his heart, then he said seriously, "I'm Kai Britannia. I'm a teaching assistant at the Industrial College on the Heliopolis Colonial Satellite. This is my ID." Ray Minkai took out the ID card that he hadn't discarded according to what he discussed with Lakis, then he looked at someone in the crowd and greeted with a smile. "Kira Yamato. I didn't expect to see you here. What's with your uniform?" Seeing Ray Minkai take the initiative to show his ID card and the way he greeted Kira, Margaret couldn't help but look at Bucky Lulu, who walked up. "An acquaintance?" Bucky Lulu frowned and looked back at Kira Yamato, who was a little confused. The latter nodded subconsciously. "We've met once." "Is that so?" Margaret looked at Ray Minkai, and her gaze lingered on the wound on Ray Minkai's arm for a moment. "I don't know what you're doing?" Although Margaret didn't say it explicitly, Ray Minkai knew that Margaret must be suspicious of his origin. Calculating the time, the destruction of Heliopolis had already happened more than a week ago. If Ray Minkai was really a teaching assistant at the Heliopolis Industrial College, he should stay on the escape capsule in Heliopolis and wait for rescue, not appear in this deadland of the undead. "After meeting Kira Yamato last time, when my sister and I took a spaceship to the moon, we encountered space pirates. We had no choice but to run into the escape capsule and float aimlessly in the universe, waiting for rescue." Speaking up to this point, Lei Minkai even revealed a grateful smile at the right time. "Fortunately, we met you, so we were able to escape." "Right. Do you know where we are now?" Ray Minkai's statement made everyone silent for a while. Logically speaking, Ray Minkai's statement had a certain degree of credibility. For everyone on the Archangel, first was the identity card in Ray Minkai's hand, then Kira Yamato personally admitted that he had met Ray Minkai once, and as the colonial satellite of Ob, Heliopolis naturally also had busy space shipping. At the same time, before Plant became independent and formed Zaft, the mission of the Earth Alliance fleet was more to fight against the increasingly rampant space pirates. Therefore, under the superimposition of multiple factors, everyone also had a preliminary consensus about Ray Minkai's identity. "You said you were with your sister? Where is she?" But even in this situation, Bucky Lulu still relentlessly looked for Ray Minkai's flaws. Oh. Sorry. I forgot. My sister was also frightened by the space pirate. Ray Minkai subconsciously raised his hand and patted his forehead, but unexpectedly, it pulled the wound, causing the already scabbed wound to exude a dazzling red again. Audrey. This is the Alliance Fleet's battleship. We're safe. Following Ray Minkai's call, a black-haired girl with obvious mixed-race characteristics and a beautiful face also walked out of the escape capsule. I'm Audrey Britannia. Thank you very much for the rescue on the Archangel. The girl standing next to Ray Minkai politely thanked Margaret and others. It was night. But the moment the clock on the wall completely overlapped and pointed to 00, Aslan, who was lying on the bed, suddenly raised his head. The illusory feeling of tearing the soul between reality and dream made Aslan unable to recover for a long time. In the gradually rapid breathing, Aslan raised his hand and held his forehead, only to find that his forehead was already wet. Looking at his sleeve again, it was also soaked. Was the scene just now really a dream? Aslan silently looked at his soaked sleeve. Sharp lines, fierce and terrifying body. A familiar aura, a familiar voice, and that familiar pink hair. This was what Aslan saw in the dream. He didn't know what the body in the dream was, but he faintly felt that behind the pink hair was the face he was familiar with. Lakis, are you the person in the dream? Aslan took a deep breath and looked at the person lying on the bed, being maintained by many life support devices. Lakis, who was attacked by an assassination and returned with serious injuries, even her bodyguards and her military school classmate, Ray Minkai, the last compatriot of Unius, died to protect her, was lying quietly on the bed, waiting for a certain moment to come. Aslan, do you want to return with news of your revenge, and be welcomed by your recovered fiancé, or do you want to sit on the edge of the bed and spend your days in fear, powerlessly waiting for the news of your fiancé's death? These were the words Kreutzer, who was urgently recalled before receiving a special leave, said to Aslan. These words made Aslan speechless, but he couldn't refute them on the spot. Why did it become like this? Aslan rarely reached out and held Lakis' right hand. Looking at the face under the oxygen mask, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. Beep beep. At this moment, the display beside the bed flashed with a signal waiting to be connected. Aslan frowned, but still put down Lakis' right hand and reached out to connect the communication signal. Is this Mr. Aslan Saleh? A nurse appeared on the display. I am. Please speak. Aslan glanced at Lakis and nodded. Please go to the hall within 10 minutes. At that time, there will be a joint press conference held by the chairman of the National Defense Force, Patrick Saleh, and the chairman, Siegel Klein. Father and the chairman? Aslan was stunned, but still nodded in response. I got it. I'll go now. After Aslan, who had left in a hurry, was shut out by the door, a figure quietly appeared in the ward that had returned to silence. She sighed faintly. You're playing with fire, Mia. The girl, who was supposed to be unconscious on the bed, opened her eyes and raised her hand to take off the oxygen mask on her face. I know. But I can't control myself. I thought that when I passed away in Aslan's arms, that would be my ending. An ending that I could accept calmly. But when I saw Aslan again, the feelings in my heart exploded uncontrollably. The woman standing beside the bedside. I know. I feel the same way. If it wasn't for the doctor's intervention back then, perhaps Aslan would have returned to my hometown with me. Mia. My feelings are as hot as yours. But now is not the time for Aslan to wake up. Do you understand? The girl, who was leaning on the bed, nodded silently and agreed to her ally's request. I understand, Miss E. No one would know what had happened in the ward. Aslan, who came to the hall, wouldn't know what happened in the ward, nor would he know that he was the Aslan who had yet to wake up. He only knew that unexpected changes had happened in the world. This might push the entire world into an even more terrifying abyss. Dear citizens of Plant, good evening. I'm very sorry to disturb your rest time. But due to the current changes in the situation, the Supreme Council has made an important decision. But before announcing this important decision, we need to announce something else. On the huge screen was the figure of Siegel Klein. Although Siegel Klein's image should have been adjusted for some time, the hint of tiredness and sadness under his eyes was clearly seen by the sharp-eyed Aslan. Lux's serious injury and coma had already dealt a huge blow to the leader of the Klein faction, who had always advocated for a peaceful coexistence with Earth. In front of Siegel Klein's slightly desolate figure was Patrick Sala, whose expression was cold and whose gaze had become even sharper. Dear citizens of PNLNT, soldiers of Zaft, I now announce a very unfortunate piece of news. Everyone, please remain calm when you hear this news. Patrick Sala paused, and his voice became more and more angry. Recently, the Pearl of PNLNT, Lux Klein, brought the thoughts of all Plant citizens to Unit 7 to commemorate our compatriots who died on Bloody Valentine's Day. However, she was attacked by an assassination team sent by the Earth Alliance Army. The moment Patrick Sala personally announced this earth-shattering news, the crowd around Aslan exploded on the spot, shouting angrily and crazily for revenge against the Earth Alliance Army. But Aslan, who was in the middle of it, knew that his father's speech was far from over. As if he knew the situation in Plant, Patrick Sala raised his hands and signaled the audience to calm down. Under the rescue team's rescue, Lux Klein was sent to the Central Hospital of the capital, April City. Now, she's still seriously injured and unconscious. Also, when Patrick Sara revealed that Lux was seriously injured and unconscious, he smashed the rest of the heavy news onto the heads of all the residents of Plant. The last compatriot of Unit 7, Ray Minkai, accompanied Lux Klein during the memorial ceremony. In order to protect Lux Klein, he did not hesitate to die together with the enemy to win a chance of survival for Lux Klein. After saying that, Patrick Sala's voice carried a hint of sadness. My compatriots, send our thoughts to the last compatriot of Unit 7, Ray Minkai. He was supposed to stay in April City and live a new life with a new face. But when Plant faced a crisis, he still stood up without hesitation. For this, he paid a price that he should not have paid. Patrick Sala raised his right hand high, scolded loudly, and waved his arm vigorously. Why? Why did this happen? Our compatriot, why did this happen? Tell me, why? Patrick Sala's voice continued to echo in the room, the hall, the road, the park, and even in the middle of the night, the busy Zaft base. Alliance! Alliance! Earth Alliance! Revenge! Revenge! Everything is the fault of Earth Alliance. Gradually, a slogan that no one knew who shouted first resonated with the surrounding crowd. Like a monstrous wave, the sound quickly spread to all the colonial satellites of Plant. At the moment when the waves of cheers reached their peak, Patrick Sala waved his fist heavily and then swung it forward forcefully. Now, in the name of the chairman of the National Defense Council, we, Zaft, have received the authorization of the Supreme Council. We will avenge the 243,721 compatriots who died tragically in the Bloody Valentine incident, and the hero who died together with the enemy in order to protect our Pearl, Lux Klein, Ray Minkai. For Plant. For Zaft. Revenge. 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 At this moment, Plant was completely immersed in the anger of revenge. Aslan, who was in the middle of it, looked hesitant, but he could not help but think of Kreutzer's previous words. Do you want to be a hero and return to your recovered fiancé? Or do you want to powerlessly hug your dead fiancé and cry? Chapter 543. His blood-stained clothes were changed, and his bleeding wounds were bandaged. Ray Minkai, who was in a sorry state, had now recovered his clean and neat appearance. This will be your room, Teacher Britannia. After some inquiries, the officers of Archangel, represented by Marlowe and Bucky Lulu, had already recognized Ray Minkai's identity. They then arranged for people to treat Ray Minkai's injuries and arrange accommodation. And, thank you, Kira. Also, don't call me teacher. Actually, I'm not that much older than you. Ray Minkai glanced at the empty four-person room, then nodded to Kira and thanked him. Kira was stunned for a moment, but he still accepted Ray Minkai's explanation. After all, in terms of appearance, Ray Minkai's young face did not have much resemblance to the teacher in Kira's impression. Seeing that Kira wanted to speak but did not know what to say, Ray Minkai stepped forward and patted Kira's shoulder. You can just call me by my name, Kai. Also, thank you very much for today. If not for you, my sister and I would have become undead in space. No, old Kai, you don't have to say that. I just did what I should do. Ji-La shook his head repeatedly. He didn't take credit for rescuing Lei Minkai and Li Chia. Is that so? Then, this time, I owe you a favor. Kira. Ray Minkai smiled and took the initiative to end the conversation. Using the excuse that he needed to rest, he let Kira leave on his own. Kira's back disappeared at the end of the passage. At this moment there was no one around. Ray Minkai cautiously sized up the passage that no one would pass through in a short period of time, then turned around and closed the door. Beside the single bed on the left side of the room sat a black-haired, beautiful girl. She was looking at Ray Minkai and smiled slightly. You've worked hard, Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai waved his hand. Don't call me that for the time being. Our current situation is not considered safe. The black-haired girl was silent for a moment. The corners of her mouth moved, but she could not say anything. Ray Minkai could not help but ponder for a moment. If you're not feeling well, it's okay to temporarily release yourself. The black-haired girl heard him and nodded. Then, she slowly took a breath, put her hands together in front of her heart, and softly chanted. In the name of Wiser, release yourself. Ald Noah. Radiance overflowing and flickered, the black-haired girl's image, was replaced by a girl in a white dress, with beautiful long pink hair. She was Klein. It turned out that when Ray Minkai and Klein hid in the escape capsule, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble caused by Klein's face in the following encounter, Ray Minkai decided to temporarily hand over the pendant given to him by Queen Athelium, which could allow the wearer to perfectly disguise themselves as someone else through holographic projection. Now, it seemed that this pendant was indeed perfectly performing its function. How do you feel? Looking at Lux, who revealed her true appearance amidst the radiance, Ray Minkai slowly nodded. I feel good. It's as if I've become another person. Lux looked around with a hint of joy on her face, as if she was a child who had gotten a new toy. That pure smile made Ray Minkai stunned, but almost instantly, Ray Minkai calmed down. Well, that's good. Now, my name is Kai, and Lux, your name is Audrey. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Lux nodded cheerfully. Moreover, after briefly restoring her true appearance, Lux didn't wait for Ray Minkai to speak, and she whispered again. In the name of Visser, seal me. Seal my true face. The radiance overflowed, and the image of the pink princess gradually disappeared and was replaced by the image of a black-haired girl. Audrey Britannia. That's my name now. Right, Kai. Aha. Late at night, the Archangel, which was maintaining wireless signal silence, suddenly received a strong signal from the public channel. Moreover, the moment this signal appeared, the interference that had been troubling the Archangel before magically disappeared. This surprised the CIC, who had been trying to contact the Earth Alliance Army's moon base, but they were also shocked by the strong signal that made most of the interference disappear. What's going on? The noise from the corridor outside the door made Ray Minkai open his eyes and get up to check the situation. Lux, who was sleeping on the opposite bed, opened the curtain and cast a puzzled look. Audrey, continue to rest. I'll go check on the situation. Ray Minkai motioned for Lux to continue resting, but Lux shook her head. I'll go too. I don't know why, but I keep feeling uneasy. Looking at the uneasiness in Lux's eyes, Ray Minkai nodded silently. The environment they were in now was the interior of the Earth Alliance battleship that could kill them at any time. Although Ray Minkai knew the composition of the crew on the Archangel, Lux still felt uneasy about it. However, compared to Lux, who could only face the Archangel alone and face the malice from the surroundings, Lux now had Ray Minkai standing in front of her to protect her. A few minutes later, the two who came to the cafeteria saw the screen surrounded by people. What's going on? The sharp-eyed Ray Minkai saw Kira at a glance. Old. No, Kai. Kira was stunned for a moment, then nodded in a daze and pointed at the screen. It seems like some important person in Zaft is injured? Kira's vague words instantly shocked Ray Minkai and Lux. Compared to Kira, who didn't know the truth, the two of them who had experienced the entire incident were well aware of it. However, Lux was now standing beside Ray Minkai. The Pearl of Plant, Lux Klein, was assassinated by the Earth Alliance Army during a ceremony to commemorate our compatriots who died on Bloody Valentine's Day. In order to protect Lux Klein, the last compatriot of our Unius 7, Ray Minkai, perished together with the enemy. Now, Plant's Supreme Council has issued an order. Zaft will seek justice for our fallen compatriots. How can this be? Looking at the angry Patrick Sala on the screen, Lux subconsciously took 2 steps back and almost fainted. Audrey, be careful. Ray Minkai quickly supported Lux, and after she steadied herself, he looked at the scene of Patrick Sala waving his arms and shouting for revenge. This scene was a declaration of war, and it shocked Ray Minkai. Lux Klein was clearly standing beside him, but she had become a seriously injured and unconscious person. And he had become a hero who perished together with the enemy, one of the more than 200,000 undead on Unius 7. Such a shocking change caught Ray Minkai a little off guard. But soon, Ray Minkai regained his composure. Combining all the things he had experienced before, Ray Minkai already had a vague guess in his heart. Other than his own activity, the only factors that could cause this familiar world and even the timeline to change were probably those people who had always been his enemies. But now Kira Yamato. Captain's order. Please head to the bridge immediately. At this moment, an Earth Alliance Army soldier stood at the entrance of the cafeteria and shouted Kira's name. Kira? Are we going to fight again? When the young boys and girls standing with Kira heard the soldiers shout, they subconsciously thought of something terrible. Kira lowered his head and bit his lips, but he still nodded silently and turned to walk out of the cafeteria. Audrey, I'll probably be leaving for a while. Looking at Kira's back, Ray Minkai had a thought. Kai, you? Audrey. I'm sorry. I have to figure something out. Can you go back and wait for me? Ray Minkai looked into Lux's eyes and said sincerely. At this moment, Lux's heart was in a mess because of the news from Plant that she was seriously injured and unconscious. Lux was silent, but she quickly nodded in response. Go, Kai. I'll wait for you. War was coming. Although the real Lux Klein was on the Archangel, the current Plant was probably caught in the vortex of hatred and dragged into the flames of war that would devour everything. As Ray Minkai, who was announced as a heroic sacrifice, if he wanted to find the mastermind behind the scenes in this war that was about to expand, he could only use certain means. Captain. Kai Brittany requests to see Captain. In the bridge of the Archangel, Marlene and the others, who were discussing the global conference held by Plant, received the news that Ray Minkai requested to see them. Kai Brittany? What is he doing here? Bucky Lulu objected on the spot. This was an internal meeting of the Archangel. Kira's participation was already the limit of Bucky Lulu's tolerance. Oh? Knight is coming to fight? Compared to Bucky Lulu, who subconsciously objected, Moolah Flag, who was the only combatant on the Archangel who could participate in the battle, showed a meaningful smile. Major Flag. You mean? Marlene didn't seem to understand the meaning of Mu's words. Mu smiled. Eyes. Eyes. Those are the eyes that protect the princess in their hearts at all costs. Captain. And Lieutenant Bucky Lulu, I don't think this Kai will be our enemy. Although Mu hadn't had face-to-face contact with Rei Minkai before, Mu, who stood not far away, saw much more clearly than Marlene and Bucky Lulu. Are you kidding? How can the current situation be judged by intuition? Bucky Lulu objected once again. In this regard, Mu just spread his hands and shrugged his shoulders. I didn't say anything. It's just that, if there is a choice, will the captain choose to let the student pilot the body? Marlene was taken aback, then she looked at Kira, who still had a trace of resistance. Then, she sighed faintly. Major. I don't think there is anyone on this ship more suitable to pilot the attack on Gouda than Kira Yamato. Also, Kay Brittany's purpose for coming here is probably to attend the plant conference. Mu smiled and didn't say anything. In fact, Mu's hunch was right. Kira's stunned and thankful expression. Marlene and Bucky Lulu's expressions of disbelief. And Mu's smile of, as expected. It was the scene when Rei Minkai took the initiative to try to pilot the attack on Gouda. Captain. I strongly reject Kai Brittany's expression. Attacking Gouda and the Archangel is the top secret of our Earth's joint effort. Even if Kai Brittany is a teaching assistant at the School of Industry, he won't let. Lieutenant Bucky Lulu. Now the attack on Gouda is being piloted by a student. What's more, the OS system of the attack on Gouda has been adjusted by Kira Yamato. Do you think there is still a secret in this? Mu refuted Bucky Lulu's doubts on the spot. Major. You. Quiet. Marlene suddenly interrupted the argument between the two loudly. Then she glanced at Kira, only to see the joy and expectation in Kira's eyes. She couldn't help but sigh. Kai Brittany, you should understand the importance of attacking Gouda to us. It is impossible for us to let someone of unknown origin drive it. But, Marlene was silent for a moment, then continued, but if there is a choice, I hope that the attack on Gouda won't be piloted by a student. Therefore, I have decided to give you a chance. Captain! Marlene's decision made Bucky Lulu object on the spot. No need to say anything. This is my decision. If there are any problems, I will take responsibility. For the first time, Marlene showed her toughness, rejecting Bucky Lulu's objection, and looked at Kira. Kira Yamato. Thank you for your hard work. Go and arrange the simulation program. I want to see what kind of confidence the teaching assistant of the School of Industry has. Yes, Captain. The familiar cockpit. The familiar instrument arrangement. Rei Minkai, who had once piloted the IWSB to attack Gouda, was very familiar with everything in front of him, so familiar that Kira was surprised. Kai, you've piloted Gouda before? Rei Minkai, who was familiar with the buttons and started the piloting program to attack Gouda, smiled lightly. I only participated in part of the construction of the X series. There's nothing to be surprised about. Kira, who didn't know whether it was true or not, nodded as if he understood. I see. Then, Kai, press the button over there and you can start the simulation program. Understood. Looking at Kira, who walked out of the cockpit and closed the door, Bucky Lulu, who was standing below, wanted to continue protesting Marlene's decision, but was stopped by Mu. Lieutenant, if you have a choice, who do you want to sit in that airframe? A student? Or, would you rather push a student onto the battlefield than try to let an adult who wants to protect others try? Bucky Lulu was stunned and finally closed her mouth. Chapter 544. Ever since Patrick Serra and Siegel Klein jointly announced the attack on Lakis, Rei Minkai's heroic sacrifice, and the news of the joint war with Earth, the entire Earth-Moon Circle was in an uproar. In the universe, the Zaft fleet, burning with the flames of vengeance, continued to attack from plants, ports, and military bases that had been occupied by them. The Earth Alliance was caught off guard and forced to retreat. For a time, the Earth Alliance's defense line, whether in space or on Earth, was in jeopardy. At the same time, Aslan, who had made up his mind, followed Kreutzer back to his fleet. He stood in the formation of pilots that were about to attack and waited for Kreutzer to speak. "Everyone, I believe you have heard of some things. Unfortunately, our last compatriot, Ray Minkai, perished together with the enemy in order to protect Lakes Klein. I won't say anything unnecessary. I just need to see your actions." Kreutzer stood on the podium and looked at the angry faces below with satisfaction. It was too much of a coincidence. The flames of hatred created by the Pearl of Plant and the death of the last compatriot of Eunice 7 had exceeded Kreutzer's expectations. Although Kreutzer didn't know who started the Silver Wind incident, he already had a clue in his mind. But he didn't want to pursue the matter. For him, the current situation was enough. Captain Kreutzer. In the crowd, Wyzak, who gave off a reckless impression, spoke loudly. "Oh, Wyzak, is there a problem?" Kreutzer's eyes, hidden under the mask, flashed with a hint of playfulness. Among the fleet he led, Izak was the most impulsive one. "Yes. I want to know if our next action is to continue to pursue the Long Leg, Archangel, or to participate in the attack on Earth's joint lunar base." Zak's question was undoubtedly a violation of discipline, but Kreutzer didn't intend to pursue it. Instead, Kreutzer nodded. "Yes. Our next action is to continue to pursue the Long Leg. Presumably, during this period of pursuit, everyone has seen the power of Earth's new MS. If we let the Long Leg return to the hands of Earth, then we, Zaft, will face the threat of Earth's new MS in the near future. In other words, our next mission is to continue to pursue the Long Leg." Diego clapped his hands. "Yes. So, we won't participate in the attack on the lunar base, nor will we land on Earth. In that case, you should also understand what to do next." Zak and Diego saluted on the spot. Yes. Aslan and Nagori were a step behind and saluted in response. "Yes. Go down and prepare." Kreutzer had already finished what he wanted to say. The rest of the time left to these teenagers. He believed that the youths would have all sorts of questions for Aslan, the only one among them who could return to Plant. Bang! Just as Kreutzer had expected, the teenagers who had returned to the lounge had a lot of questions waiting for Aslan. Among these people, the most excited person was Zak. After repeatedly confirming that Ray Minkai was really, heroically sacrificed, the angry Zak smashed a hole in the wardrobe, scaring everyone. "Hey! Zak, you! Shut up! Diego!" No matter how strong the physical fitness of the adjuster was, it was inevitable that he would be injured if he smashed through the wardrobe made of thin iron plates with his flesh and blood. Everyone who was shocked by Zak's sudden attack just now stared blankly at Zak's right fist that was dripping with blood. Zak, whose face was getting more and more ferocious, gradually became hysterical. "Shut up! Shut up! Don't worry about me! That guy! Ah!" The more he thought about it, the angrier Zak became. He once again hammered the wardrobe, but this time, he was unable to smash through the clothes like before. That guy! That bastard who appeared in the military academy by himself. He actually sacrificed himself just like that. Bastard! Aslan, Nigger and Diego looked at each other, but it was not difficult to hear a hint from Zak's words. Zak, this guy, looks like he can't surpass Ray Minkai. Diego shook his head and sighed. As Zak's best friend, he had seen Zak challenge Ray Minkai relentlessly and was easily defeated by Ray Minkai. Once, again and again, the defeated Zak hid in the corner and roared angrily, then turned back and continued to challenge. Now Rei Minkai not only served first, but also sacrificed first. Such a change made Wizak, who had been staring at Rei Minkai, lose his target for a moment. Aslan opened his mouth, but could not say any comforting words. Compared to Wizak, who had lost his target, Aslan himself also had a lot of problems. Perhaps these problems could only be solved by time. Kreutzer and Aslan's actions had been determined. But on Rei Minkai's side, it was not very optimistic. It was still the impact of that announcement. As long as they were not stupid, they would see the fire of war that had already been ignited from that announcement. The worried Margaret looked at the documents in front of her with a headache. "Captain, the results are out." Bucky Lulu, who brought the test results, knocked on the door of the captain's room. "Are the results out? So, how is it?" Margaret pushed the document in front of her to the side and looked at Bucky Lulu. "It's perfect. Kai Britannia completed all the simulation tutorials and was able to get better results than Kira Yamato in the simulation battle program, written based on the previous battles with the 4 new airframes that Zaft had snatched away." Looking at the document Bucky Lulu handed over, Margaret could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. In this way we don't need to force the students to set foot on the battlefield, although doing so would be unfair to Kai Britannia. The implication was that Margaret approved this result and accepted Rei Minkai replacing Kira as the pilot who attacked Gouda. The results are correct. But I still have a question. Why is it that Kai Britannia was able to pass the simulation battle program smoothly when even Major Flag couldn't pilot the airframe, and even achieved a better result than Kira Yamato, who was the adjuster? Bucky Lulu's question stunned Margaret, but then she shook her head. "There's no need to talk about this question, Lieutenant. This is the current situation. In this situation where a full-scale war may have been ignited, it is important for the Archangel to return to the moon base smoothly and gain strength." Margaret's words made Bucky Lulu fall into silence. Bucky Lulu knew that this was right. Whether it was forcing Kira Yamato to pilot the attack on Gouda or letting the mysterious Kai Britannia pilot the attack on Gouda, the results of both were the same. "I see. Captain. I'll go arrange it now." After saying that, Bucky Lulu showed a rare expression of relief. As the captain said, "We finally don't need to force an innocent student to set foot on this battlefield." Margaret nodded gently, and everything was understood without words. Coincidentally, the alarm from the bridge sounded. "Captain, enemies have appeared in the maximum detection range of the radar. 3 Nazca-class battleships. The number of MS is temporarily unknown." 3 Nazca-class battleships. Margaret frowned and immediately realized the other party's intention. Using 3 high-speed battleships that were not inferior to the Archangel, there was no doubt that they wanted to take down the Archangel. "Lieutenant, inform the Major and Kai Britannia. Now it's time for them to attack." "Yes." Woo 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 woo. When the ear-piercing alarm once again sounded in the internal passage of the Archangel, the many citizens who boarded the hastily departed space battleship were already used to it. Based on their previous experience, they quickly walked to the cafeteria, did their best to protect themselves, and waited for the battle to end. Among these people, Lakis Klein was also among them. However, knowing that it was not suitable for her to have too much contact with others, Lakis Klein followed the instructions and hugged Pink Harrow, who she had repeatedly warned not to make a ruckus. She sat quietly in the corner and watched the reactions of the people around her to the battle. This might be the first time in her life that she came into close contact with the direct reaction of the civilians to a battle that happened close at hand. "Audrey, maybe this will make you feel uncomfortable, but I want you to see how they view this war with your own eyes." Before Rei Minkai went to Neku, the words he said to Lakis were still vivid in her mind. "After we die, will this war perhaps go deeper into an even more irreversible abyss?" Lakis retracted her gaze and thought about her own matters in silence. On Neku's side, Ray Minkai, who had changed into a pilot suit, stood on the lift platform. When he was about to enter the cockpit, he saw Mu standing beside Mobius Zero and gesturing to him. After observing for a moment and understanding the meaning of Mu's gesture, Ray Minkai nodded slowly and entered the cockpit of Assault Gauda. The hatch closed and the system started. Ray Minkai glanced sideways at the lit-up screen on the left. After confirming that Mu had boarded Mobius Zero, he opened the communication channel and tuned to the channel that Mu requested. Major Mu. Yo. Newbie. No. From your simulation battle results, you're not a newbie. Okay. Mr. Knight who protects the princess, from today onwards, please take care of me. Mu's words shocked Ray Minkai. He almost thought that Mu had seen through their identities. But when he thought about it, Ray Minkai was very sure that Mu had no reason or evidence to recognize him and Lakis. At this moment, Lakis had changed her appearance with the help of the holographic projection pendant. Although he had the name of the last survivor of Eunice No. 7 on his head, the Penalenti Supreme Council had never exposed his information, not even a photo. Thinking of this, Ray Minkai shook his head. Major Mu, you're joking. I'm not a knight. I'm just an ordinary person. Mu chuckled and did not take Ray Minkai's words to heart. The moment he saw Ray Minkai, his intuition had already told him the answer. Really? Then, let me see what you've got. This is a battlefield where you can lose your life at any time. Understood. Ray Minkai responded, then turned the channel back to the original channel and looked at Mirialia, who was waiting anxiously. Sorry. There were some problems with the system just now, but it's now solved. Assault Gauda, we can set off at any time. Before Mirialia could say anything, Ray Minkai took the lead to give a reason. Kai Brittany. From now on, you are temporarily recruited. As a warrant officer, you will pilot the assault on Gauda and protect the Archangel. Understand? Before the poor Mirialia could speak, Bucky Lulu, who was standing next to her, took the headset and looked at Ray Minkai's profile picture. Lieutenant, launch the assault immediately. There are a lot of enemies. Originally, Marlene had no intention of joining Bucky Lulu's work, but after seeing the number of MSs released by the 3 Nazgul-class high-speed battleships, she suddenly could not sit still. Holy Shield Duel, Storm, Thunderbolt and 12 Xeon. Bucky Lulu looked at the number of MSs displayed on the radar screen in front of her, and could not help but gasp. With this lineup, let alone dealing with the Archangel, they could even face the Joint Fleet for a while. Warrant Officer Kai. Attack. Although this is your first battle, the enemy will not hold back because of this. Marlene bit her lips and said with a hint of apology. It's expected, Captain. Don't worry about it. Also, Captain, I have an idea. This scene was nothing to Ray Minkai. Not long ago, Ray Minkai had just piloted the VF-21 and fought back and forth with the overwhelming number of Gamu. After Ray Minkai explained, Marlene and Bucky Lulu looked at each other in surprise. Marlene quickly thought about it and asked again. Warrant Officer, how confident are you? 70%. But I need Major Mu's cover. Hey. I say, Warrant Officer, isn't your idea too bold? The enemy won't stand there stupidly and watch you transform. Mu naturally heard Ray Minkai's idea. As the most experienced pilot on the battlefield, he immediately put forward his own opinion. So I need your cover. Hey, do you trust me that much? Mu smiled and actually agreed to Ray Minkai's request. Okay. When the time comes, as long as I'm not entangled by the enemy, I'll do it. I'll allow it. Warrant Officer, just do as you wish. Major, I'll have to trouble you then. Marlene saw that Mu agreed and made up her mind. Understood. Then, Kai Britannia, attack Gauda, attack! Chapter 545. In the dark space, A ray of light that suddenly appeared from the white light in the distance swept through the void at an extremely fast speed. It swept through the formation formed by Aslan, Izak, and the others in a way that caught them off guard. Ah! When the light swept past, a scream rang out. It was the moment when one of the Zeon in the formation was blown up. What's going on? In the dazzling explosion, everyone was stunned. A few minutes ago, all the capable MS fighters on their side had just taken off from the mothership and formed an offensive formation. When they were heading towards the target, they were attacked outside the maximum firepower range of the battleship. They even paid the price of having a Zeon destroyed. How is this possible? The long-legged main cannon is firing? Diego swallowed his saliva and said in disbelief. Don't be in a daze. Spread out quickly. The attack is coming. Aslan, who reacted the fastest, shouted and at the same time, drove his holy shield Gauda out of the formation. The other teammates followed behind. However, another ray of light emerged from the white light in the distance. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, it flew past the dispersing formation and struck the second unfortunate Zeon. Boom! The bright explosion tore the unfortunate Zeon apart in front of the horrified eyes of Aslan and the others. Quick! Get out of the way! This time, without waiting for Aslan to shout, Izak knew what they should do now. The range of the attack was beyond their imagination, and in a short period of time, 2 of their Zeon mechs were destroyed. The attack was so fast and strange that even the Zeon pilots couldn't react in time. Quick! The attack is coming! Spread out! Spread out! Disorderly movement! Diego also kept shouting on the communication channel. The light appeared. The second after the formation formed by the 4 Gauda and Zeons was completely broken, the third ray of light followed closely. This time, it was still Zeon. But the third unfortunate Zeon was lucky enough to avoid the vital parts, and 2 of its thighs were cut off by the light. It was also because of this that Aslan was able to see through the strange attacks that appeared one after another. Keep up the speed. Continue to spread out. This was not the enemy's new weapon. It was just the enemy's super long-range attack. Yes, it was the cannon that had attacked Gauda. No, that's just the aftermath of an ultra-long-range attack. What? How could that mech's artillery reach so far? This is beyond the attack range of the warship's main cannon. Why, Zack was the first to express his doubts as everyone quickly spread out and moved in a disorderly manner to outflank the long legs in the distance. I don't know. However, this is the only way to explain why the enemy's attack is so strange. At this moment, Aslan's formation had lost its original threat, but everyone on the Archangel heaved a sigh of relief. They could not help but glance at Aslan, who was standing on the deck of the Archangel and attacking Gauda as expected. If the distance is too far, the attack power will be scattered too much? During the assault on Gauda, Ray Minkai's face appeared from behind the scope. He looked at the gradually appearing crosshair on the screen and sighed slightly. Be content. Although the third mech was not completely destroyed, it has actually lost its combat ability. In other words, in the previous round of cannon fire, you have already destroyed 3 enemy mechs. White Cat State Zero's voice rang in Ray Minkai's mind. Its appearance was for no other reason than to help Ray Minkai lock on to the enemy and assist in attacking them when they were at a distance where Gao Da's artillery could not lock on. From the previous round of cannon fire, White Cat State Zero had achieved its goal very well. Hey! Humans are always greedy. State Zero. Ray Minkai smiled gently and looked at the scope again. With a move of his hands, Gauda changed its position and locked on to Zeon, who was flying towards the back of the Archangel. Compared to the Holy Shield, Duel, Storm, and Thunderbolt that Aslan and the others piloted, Zeon, who was equipped with anti-ship equipment, was more threatening. As Lakis was now on the Archangel, Ray Minkai would not allow any mishap to happen to the Archangel. even though the Archangel's defense ability and armor level were far superior to all the warships in the Earth Alliance's active service. Attack. Kai. White Cat State Zero's support ability was still active. It knew very well who Rei Minkai's target was. When the crosshair turned blood red, the assault Gundam opened fire again. This attack wasn't the same as the previous one, where most of the attack was scattered due to the super long distance. As the light beam flashed, the fourth Zeon that was trying to avoid Gao Da's cannon fire by moving in a disorderly manner exploded. That mech is targeting Zeon. Aslan and the others were very fast. When the fourth Zeon was blown up by Gauda, they had already rushed to the maximum range that they could attack. At the same time, they saw Gauda standing on the deck of the Archangel. Aslan, what are you going to do? This is the fourth Zeon. When Zack saw Gauda, he also understood what the previous round of cannon fire was about. What made him even angrier was that the pilot who had attacked the Gundam seemed to be acquainted with Aslan. Aslan was stunned for a moment and did not know what to do for a moment. What he did not know was that Gauda, who was standing on the Archangel, had already been replaced by another pilot. The fourth one. There are still 8 Zeons. The Archangel is facing them, but it will be difficult. Rei Minkai estimated the pressure that the Archangel could withstand when facing 8 Zeons equipped with anti-ship equipment. He decided to try his best to reduce the number of Zeons in close combat. Kai, I'll help you restrain the enemy. You try your best to kill a few Zeons. Mu had the same thought as Rei Minkai. Morbius State Zero flew out from the right side of the Archangel and quickly rushed towards the right front of the Archangel. There were 3 Zeons trying to form an attack team, taking advantage of the distraction of Gauda to attack the Archangel. Attack Gauda! Don't worry about the Archangel. Follow your own plan. At the same time, Bucky Lulu's communication was also transmitted to Rei Minkai's ears. Obviously, Rei Minkai's previous battle record had been recognized by Bucky Lulu. Understood. But I will try my best to reduce the number of Zeons. After all, the equipment that they are equipped with is a threat to the Archangel. The muzzle moved, and attack Gauda once again locked onto the last Zeon that rushed to the back of the Archangel with the help of the White Cat's State Zero. A blazing beam burst out from the muzzle and swept past the outer armor of the Archangel, penetrating the Zeon that was quietly trying to attack the propulsion engine of the Archangel. Boom! When the fireball lit up, the assault Gundam threw away the heavy artillery Inferno God that was connected to the Archangel through a cable. It then turned around and locked onto Zeon, who was entangled by Mobius State Zero, and fired all the missiles on its right shoulder in one breath. Before the smoke from the missiles dissipated, Rei Minkai directly called for CIC Mirialia. Archangel. Soaring wing equipment. Understood. Soaring wing equipment ready. Fire. Mirialia, who had been waiting for a long time, quickly completed all the procedures and ejected the soaring wing equipment directly. Coming. Major Mu. When the soaring wing equipment flew out, attack Gauda directly flew towards the predetermined rendezvous coordinates, and Rei Minkai sent a signal to Mu at the same time. TSK. You really know how to pick the right time. Knight. Mu gritted his teeth and immediately drove Morbius State Zero to escape from Zeon's siege and flew towards attack Gauda. Before Zeon, who refused to let go of Morbius State Zero, could catch up, he was stopped by the missile that attack Gauda had fired before, blocking his way. Quick, Diego! Stop that airframe! As soon as he saw Morbius State Zero and attack Gauda's movements, Zack's eyes almost widened to the limit, and he shouted loudly on the spot for Storm Gauda, who had the longest range among the 4, to stop attack Gauda. However, before Diego could do anything, Mu, who was paying attention to the movements of the 4 Gauda, immediately turned around and aimed the muzzle of Morbius State Zero at Diego. In an instant, Diego faced 2 choices. Either he interrupted attack Gao Da's movements and was hit by Morbius State Zero attack, or he could avoid Morbius State Zero attack and give up on interrupting attack Gao Da's movement. In the situation of two choices, Diego almost subconsciously made a choice. In the next second, Storm Gauda escaped from Morbius State Zero crosshairs. Hey! He's really too inexperienced. Mu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw Storm Gauda dodge. Thank you, Major Mu. Leave this to me. You go and help Archangel. A figure flew past Morbius State Zero, and at the same time, Rei Minkai's figure came. Good. I'll leave this to you, Knight. Returning to Archangel's surroundings behind Morbius State Zero, he successfully removed his artillery equipment and changed into wing equipment to attack Gao Da. Kira? Stop! You haven't made enough trouble. You just killed someone. When Aslan, who had been in a disconnected state, saw attack Gao Da rushing to the front, it was as if he was suddenly activated. He quickly drove Holy Shield Gauda in front of Gauda. Aslan. You bastard! Get out of my way! Isaac once again saw Aslan in the way and immediately scolded. Immediately after, Isaac saw a scene that surprised him. According to the previous battles, as long as Aslan was shouting the other party's name and hindering the battle, the other party would also become restrained. But now, it was Holy Shield Gauda who was being suppressed unilaterally. Attack Gauda had a shield in his left hand and a beam rifle in his right hand. He constantly shot beams at Holy Shield Gauda. Although attack Gauda's attack frequency was not high, almost every shot could interrupt Holy Shield Gauda's movement rhythm. If it weren't for Aslan's skills, he would have been one of the souls in space. Aslan, be careful. Aslan's good friend, Nigger, naturally did not want to see Aslan being forced into a desperate situation. Thunderbolt Gauda fired 3 beams in a row, interrupting the attack rhythm of attack Gauda, allowing Aslan to breathe a sigh of relief. Nigger, thank you. Aslan took a few breaths and finally accepted a fact that he couldn't believe, but he couldn't help but admit. Nigger Isaac Diego. The pilot in that airframe is not someone I know. Surprised? There was. But they didn't have time to be surprised. Because Gauda avoided the attack, Gauda turned around and rushed towards Diego's Storm Gauda. There was no other reason. It was still Rei Minkai's action to prioritize the safety of the Archangel. Among the 4 Gauda, Storm Gauda posed the greatest threat to the Archangel. At this moment, Diego finally experienced how Aslan felt when he was almost forced to a dead end. Every time he wanted to drive the airframe to dodge, the attack on Gauda would always happen to appear in the key position of Storm Gauda's movement, abruptly interrupting its movement rhythm. Buzz! Fortunately, Diego also received support from his friends like Aslan did with Nigger's cover. Dual Gauda and Thunderbolt Gauda worked together to shoot out beams of light, trying to interrupt the attack on Gauda's pursuit of Storm Gauda. Moreover, while the 2 Gauda attacked, Sacred Shield Gauda saw the opportunity and rushed forward when the attack on Gauda retreated and tried to open up the distance and reorganize the attack. Sacred Shield Gauda's hands were filled with beam swords. Under Aslan's operation, when Sacred Shield Gauda waved the beam sword in his hand, it was a burst of dazzling beam sword light that symbolized death. Who the hell are you? Kira, what's wrong with Kira Yamato? After understanding that the pilot who attacked Gauda was not the Kira Yamato he was familiar with, Aslan's attacks gradually became ruthless. Aslan, sure enough, is still talking about Kira. Same old. Listening to the voice from the public channel, Rei Minkai sneered, but he didn't want to talk to Aslan. Storm Gauda raised the shield in his hand, and the beam rifle in his right hand moved down while the shield covered Gauda's line of sight, aiming at Sacred Shield Gauda's cockpit. What? As expected of one of the 2 protagonists of Seed. At the moment of crisis, he actually reacted in time, making the mech lean back, and took the opportunity to fly up and kick Gao Da's shield. Your reaction is fast, Aslan. Sacred Shield. Gao Da's attack didn't make Ray Minkai feel much of a threat. To Ray Minkai, this was just Aslan's way of escaping. What was more worthy of Ray Minkai's attention was that while Sacred Shield Gauda and Storm Gauda were fighting, the three Gaudas mechs quickly surrounded Gauda. Again, after discovering that Storm Gauda was not piloted by Kira Yamato, the indecisive Aslan gradually became serious and joined forces with his friends to attack Storm Gauda. At this moment, the real 1v4 fell on Ray Minkai's head. Chapter 546. 1v4. A true 1v4. This was not the original timeline. It seemed to be a 1v4, but in fact it was a situation where Aslan was slacking, and Zack and the other two took turns to practice with Kerala. Instead, it was a true one-on-one battle against many. Hey, Kai, what should we do? You won't really kill them, right? The surging power provided by Assault Gao Da's wing equipment could allow him to take the lead for a short time, but with the encirclement of 4 Gao Das, he was afraid that he would not be able to hold on for long. So what if I kill them? Ray Minkai's gaze swept through the various parameters displayed on the screen, especially the remaining energy parameters that symbolized Assault Gao Da's ability to maintain combat power at the moment. Don't joke around. Those 4 guys don't have any deep hatred with you. Moreover, aren't you also classmates? White Cat State Zero's teasing voice echoed in Ray Minkai's mind. Those few Zeons also don't have any deep hatred with me. Ray Minkai's eyes flashed. Assault Gauda, who was surrounded and chased by 4 Zeons, suddenly paused, followed by a quick flip, and at the same time, the muzzle was driven directly at Gauda, who was very close to Assault Gauda at the moment. Not good. Nigger. Dodge quickly. Buzz. In the nick of time, the beam shot by Assault Gauda hit the anchor claw on Thunderbolt Gauda's left wrist. Boom. The small-scale explosion caused by the anchor claw forced Thunderbolt Gauda to temporarily withdraw from the battle. Nigger. Are you okay? Nigger, who was already sweating profusely, nodded and said with relief, Yes. I'm fine. It's just that the anchor claw can't be used. It's just an anchor claw. Come back and fight. That guy is running away. As soon as he saw that Thunderbolt Gao Da's combat power was not affected much, Zack loudly urged Nigger to return to the battle on the spot. Unexpectedly, Zack's vision turned black. It was Assault Gauda who rushed to the front of Gauda. Danger. Zack? Diego's anxious voice sounded, and Zack's eyes were already filled with brilliance. It was a brilliance full of death aura. No. The light flashed, and the ear-piercing alarm rang in his ears, but Zack found that his life was not gone with it. What was taken away by the brilliance was the lower part of the dual Gao Da's body. But if the terrible wound moved up a little more, it would be the death of Zack. Boom. Before he could rejoice in his survival, Zack was pressed down in the cockpit by a gravitational force. It turned out that after Dual Gauda was cut into 2 pieces by Assault Gao Da's sword, he did not stop because of this. Instead, he raised his right leg and kicked Gauda in the chest, fiercely kicking him away. With this force, he jumped up and flew towards the Archangel at full speed. In a short moment, Assault Gauda broke through the encirclement of the 4 Gauda, chased after it, and accelerated to break out of the encirclement and rush to support the Archangel. Such a rapid change stunned the 3 of them. Aslan. Go after it. Among us, only Sacred Shield Gauda can catch up with that airframe. Quick. At the critical moment, Nigger, who was always looked down upon by Zack, made a decisive decision. When Aslan heard this, without thinking, he directly turned Sacred Shield Gauda into MA form and accelerated to catch up. Diego, you go after it too. Let me take care of Zack. Then, as Nigger drove Gauda to chase after Dual Gauda, who was kicked away, Niggur's instructions rang in Diego's ears. This, Diego, who was affected by the old impression, did not react for a while. Quick! The pilot of that airframe is not something that Aslan alone can defeat. I see. 2 out of 4. The instantaneous change not only removed 2 of the 4 Gauda's combat power, but also made Aslan and others have a trace of fear, even fear, for Assault Gauda Ray Minkai's move had indeed pushed the battle in another direction, an opportunity that could allow Archangel to escape. Mobius Zero's linear cannon was constantly firing, and the 4 wired pods it carried were constantly attacking Gauda, taking advantage of the opportunity of Sacred Shield Gauda, Dual Gauda and Dual Gauda. They took turns to attack Archangel. However, for Mobius Zero, Zeon's existence was undoubtedly restraining its existence. In the early stages of this war, the combat power ratio between Mobius Zero and Zeon reached 6:1 or even higher. Even now, with a better understanding of Zeon's performance and a reversal of the combat power ratio, Zeon's advantage over Mobius Zero was still significant. Zeon, who had fired his own anti-ship equipment at Archangel, changed his target on the spot and fired at Mobius Zero, forcing Mu to temporarily avoid Zeon's attack. Archangel, hold on. Assault Gauda and he will be back soon. Boom! Boom! The aftermath of the attack continued to impact Archangel, and the sound of the explosion echoed wantonly in Archangel. Ball F***CK, maintain the bullet screen, don't let the enemy get close to Archangel. Set the anti-aircraft missiles to automatic reflection. After Bucky Lulu issued a series of combat orders, she looked at Mirialia's position. CIC. Assault Gauda, what's the situation now? Is he back? Yes. He's now returning quickly. He's estimated to be near Archangel in 1 minute. Hearing this news, Bucky Lulu secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and then she looked ahead. Captain, I got it. After Assault Gauda returns, immediately accelerate the evacuation. Ray Minkai's plan had reached the last step. The rest was to eliminate Zeon, who was blocking Archangel's path. The assault Gundam was very fast, but the Holy Shield Gundam chasing after it was even faster. TSK. You're fast when it comes to chasing the enemy, but you're hesitant when it comes to chasing the girl. Aslan, you've had enough. Assault Gauda turned around abruptly, raised his beam rifle, and fired 3 consecutive shots at Sacred Shield Gauda. Got him. Assault Gauda's attack made Aslan happy. He was not afraid that Assault Gauda would attack, but he was afraid that Assault Gauda would run away, ignoring Sacred Shield Gauda's pursuit. Moving left and right, Sacred Shield Gauda easily avoided Assault Gauda's 3 consecutive shots, but Aslan found that his vision suddenly turned black. Instinctively, Sacred Shield Gauda turned into an MS and raised the shield in his hand to block. But the expected explosion did not happen. Under the huge impact, Aslan found that the attack on Sacred Shield Gauda was actually a shield. Moreover, the scene that Isaac had encountered before descended once again, but the object of the descent had changed to Aslan. After being bounced off by Sacred Shield Gauda, he actually flew up and kicked Gauda at Sacred Shield Gauda. The Sacred Shield Gauda, who was sent flying backwards, no longer had the ability to chase after the figure that attacked Gauda. On the other hand, Assault Gauda once again kicked away the Sacred Shield Gauda's strength and accelerated again, flying towards the Archangel. As for Storm Gauda, who arrived later, Diego was also faced with a choice. Rescue Aslan, who had been knocked unconscious, or chase after Assault Gauda. As far as the results were concerned, Diego and Nigori's choices were the same. Damn it! Diego looked unwillingly at Assault Gauda, who had joined the Archangel, but there was nothing he could do. Didn't you catch up? Ray Minkai glanced at the dot of light on the radar screen that had stopped moving and even began to retreat. He smiled slightly. The series of actions just now was undoubtedly an attack against the four of them. As long as there was a loss among the four of them would inevitably hesitate. Judging from the results, this tactic was a success. The exit of Isaac and Aslan led directly to the exit of Nigori and Diego. This deal was very cost-effective. Behind the Archangel, where the three Nazca-level high-speed warships were located. Captain Kreutzer. In the final battle, Gouda suffered heavy injuries and lost his combat ability. Thunderbolt Gouda is assisting him in his return. In addition, Sacred Shield Gouda pilot Aslan Serra is unconscious, and Storm Gouda is also assisting him in his return. The CIC report left Kreutzer silent. It had only been less than half an hour since the beginning of the battle. How could there be such a drastic change? What surprised Kreutzer was that it was far from the end. Captain Kreutzer. The Haldaren called. The MS of the ship has been completely lost. Please withdraw from the battle. What? The flagship Visalius, Captain Yads, jumped up in surprise and looked at the CIC in disbelief. Confirm again. Kreutzer ordered with a solemn face. In the end, nothing changed. Even the other Nazca-level high-speed warship, the Holzinger, also sent a similar message. The difference was that there were still 2 MS left on the Holzinger, which was better than the miserable state of the Haldaren. Is the strength of that ship so terrifying? Kreutzer's eyes, hidden behind the mask, flashed with the light of thinking, but in the depths of his eyes, there was a glimmer of light that tried to destroy everything. No, this is not the strength of that ship. It's that MS. With a turn of thought, Kreutzer guessed the truth. Kreutzer, who had experienced hundreds of battles, knew that it was far more difficult to spare the enemy on the battlefield than to kill the enemy. Who is the pilot of that MS? From the previous battle, whether it was Kreutzer who saw it or Aslan who took the initiative to confess, they all pointed to one fact. The pilot of the latest MS in the Earth Alliance army was actually a student. But the battle that happened in front of him cruelly threw this fact to the ground and wantonly trampled on it. Is there such a terrifying pilot on that ship? Is it Mu? No, it can't be him. That person doesn't have this kind of ability. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, but in the depths of these thoughts, Kreutzer was happy to accept the situation in front of him. Yes, the stronger the strength displayed by the Earth Alliance army, the stronger Zaf's resistance would be, until, Yads. Kreutzer, who was just about to give the order to retreat, unexpectedly received an excuse that allowed him to step down smoothly. Report. A signal from plant. The CIC first subconsciously reported the source of the signal that suddenly appeared, then was shocked by the information contained in the signal. Captain Kreutzer. It's a global broadcast. Plant is now broadcasting globally? What? They actually chose this time? Yads realized that the things that shocked him today were one after another, making him unable to react. Oh! Kreutzer raised his eyebrows, the corners of his mouth gradually hung a trace of a smile. Connect it. I believe that the long legs will also connect. Let us witness this historical moment. Although the CIC did not understand what Kreutzer meant, they still followed Kreutzer's words. After a flash on the main screen of the bridge, a pure and beautiful face appeared. Miss Lakis? As long as it was someone from Plant, the moment they saw that face, they would subconsciously call out that name. Miss Lakis, are you all right? On the screen, Lakis was wearing a hospital gown, her face was pale, and her voice revealed a trace of powerlessness. I'm Lax Klein. Citizens of Plant, soldiers of Zaft, thank you for your concern. My body is already fine. But now I have a request. A request to all the soldiers of Zaft who have hatred in their hearts and started a war against the innocent people. Lakis' pale face was so sad that the smile on Kreutzer's mouth gradually became tyrannical. Is Her Royal Highness really awake? The old lax Klein would never have said something like that. Lux's speech was still going on. The tragedy that happened on Unius 7 was not what we expected. What we expected was to remember the tragedy and work hard for the arrival of peace, not wantonly burning hatred and waging war against the enemy. What we need is to find the real culprit that caused the tragedy on Unius 7, not to start an irreversible war. Humph, enough. Kreutzer sneered a few times and raised his hand to signal the CIC to turn off the global broadcast from plant. Now, let us follow the will of Lacus Klein and stop this battle. Yads, issue the order to retreat. Ah yes. Captain Kreutzer. The tricolored signal flare that represented the retreat lit up in the void. The battle was over. Looking at the back of the remaining Xeon quickly retreating, there was a burst of screams on the bridge of Archangel. What the hell are you doing? The battle is not over. Recall Mobius 0 and attack Gouda. Archangel, evacuate the area at full speed. The enemy is only retreating for a while. Bucky Lulu, who was still nervous, yelled and issued the order to retreat. Although it was overstepping his authority, Marlene did not want to pursue it. The battle is over. However, for Ray Minkai, this battle, no, it should be called a war. This war had just begun. The enemy had already revealed their purpose. Lacus Klein. There was no doubt that it was a fake Lacus Klein. Her appearance must be the follow-up of the attack on the Silver Wind. Oh, Ray Minkai, who quickly left Naku and came to the cafeteria, was surprised to find that Lacus was not there. Teacher Kai, your sister seems to have returned to her room. Kira looked at Ray Minkai, who was looking for Lacus, and gave a hint. Thank you, Kira. Ray Minkai responded casually and quickly ran to his room with Lacus. The global broadcast just now must have been received by the Archangel. Kai, I want to go to Earth. The moment the door opened, Lacus, who was standing in the darkness, looked at Ray Minkai, who stepped into the room, and said firmly. Chapter 547. Earth. The instant Lacus mentioned that she wanted to go to Earth, countless thoughts appeared in Ray Minkai's mind. However, Ray Minkai did not voice out the thoughts that surged out like a tide. Instead, he quietly looked at Lacus, waiting for her to continue. Swoosh. The automatic door closed at this moment. Darkness followed closely behind and enveloped the entire room. A glimmer of light quietly lit up in Lacus's hands. It was Harrow. It was the faint light from Pink Harrow's two small eyes. Lacus, who was holding Pink Harrow with both hands, was like a young girl holding a candle with a weak flame, lonely and helpless. My voice, appearance, and even identity have been lost. Lacus Klein. This name was taken by a stranger when I had no way of knowing it. Now, that stranger is using my voice, my appearance, my identity, using that familiar tone, familiar words to pacify this war. Lacus's voice was very soft, so soft that it could not be heard if one was slightly further away. Ray Minkai's gaze wavered slightly, but he did not say anything. But a voice that sounded like a sigh and also like a self-deprecating voice sounded. Lacus raised her head and looked at Ray Minkai. Her gaze was wavering, filled with fear, but more than that, there was confusion. I know that person doesn't want to stop this war. But I don't know why she is doing this. I also don't know what she wants to do with my voice, my appearance, and my identity. Looking at Lacus Klein, whom he had never seen before, Ray Minkai took a few steps forward and stood in front of Lacus as he softly asked, "What is it?" He asked softly, "So, you want to go to Earth and not find a way to return to plant?" Hearing Ray Minkai's words, Lacus smiled lightly, but there was a trace of desolation in her smile. Go back? I'll just be courting death if I go back now. Kai. Looking at Lacus's desolate smile, Ray Minkai clenched his hands slightly and took a deep breath. Then, tell me, Lux, what do you want to do next? The temporary retreat of the pursuers made the Archangel relieved. But more than that, it was the pressure of an impending storm. Margaret sat in the bridge and silently stared at the darkness ahead. No matter how many times she asked people to send out signals and call for the Earth Alliance fleet that might be nearby, there was no response. Even at the end of the fierce battle, which ended because of the words of the girl who claimed to be Lakis Klein, the uneasiness in Margot's heart didn't grow stronger. Captain, he found out. The girl who claimed to be Lakis Klein was the daughter of Plant's highest council president. According to the intelligence, this girl was not only the daughter of the speaker, but also a well-known singer in Plant. Her words have a certain degree of credibility. Baki Lulu took the information she had just obtained and came to Marlu's side. After thanking him, Marlu took the document and flipped through it. He pondered for a moment. Lieutenant, where is Warrant Officer Britannia now? Baki Lulu shook her head. Probably in the room. From the warrant officer's attitude towards his sister, he seems to be very concerned about his sister's safety. After all, they are brother and sister. Well, can you inform Major Mu and Warrant Officer Kai to come to my room? I want to have a small meeting. You can come too. Yes. Marlu's order quickly reached Ray Minkai. At this moment, it just so happened that Lei Minkai and Lakis had come to a conclusion about their future. I understand. I never thought that you would want to go there. Originally, I thought you would go find the man called Tiger. Tiger? Lakis looked at Ray Minkai in confusion. At this time, Ray Minkai suddenly realized. The current Tiger, Andy Butterfield, who was called the Desert Tiger, didn't seem to have the possibility of contacting the Klein faction. According to the original timeline, the Desert Tiger was still fighting the Earth Alliance army in the desert. It wasn't until Kira drove the assault on Gouda and defeated him and his lover that the following events happened. But now, it seemed that there wasn't such a possibility. No. It's just some rumors. Maybe when the time comes, it will be an opportunity for us. For now, let's just look at the road in front of us and move forward. Okay. Thank you, Kai. Although Lakis didn't understand, she knew very well that Ray Minkai was sincere in helping her. No need to thank me. Right now, I'm just a dead person who was unilaterally declared dead by Plant. Isn't that right? Lei Minkai shrugged his shoulders and said in a joking manner. Lux couldn't help but laugh at Lei Minkai's antics. That's right. Lakis, no, Audrey. Even if Lakis Klein's identity is stolen, you still have the name Audrey. So, before everything is clear, don't be discouraged. Yes. I understand, Kai. Their next course of action had already been decided. Although the reason why Lakis decided to go to Earth was out of Ray Minkai's expectations, after knowing Lakis's detailed thoughts and combining it with Ray Minkai's understanding of this world, he realized that Lakis's choice was indeed the best solution to the current situation. Right now, whether it was Ray Minkai or Lakis, they were both alone and without anyone to rely on. The only thing the two of them could do was rely on each other and move forward without a clear path ahead. Scandinavia. This was the place that Lakis wanted to go to. According to the modern world's map, this was a peninsula in northern Europe that extended towards the Atlantic Ocean. Due to the high latitude of the peninsula, which resulted in long nights in winter, the Teutonic word for darkness, together with the word via, which had a territorial meaning, formed the name of the peninsula, Scandinavian. And in the context of the CE century, this peninsula had another meaning. It was that, in the First and Second Great Wars of the CE century, the Klein family that had great influence and even changed the direction of the entire war under the leadership of Lakis Klein was born on this peninsula. However, this sentence was hidden in an unknown corner of the CE world, and it was extremely unpopular. If not for the coincidental timing, as well as Lakis's decision and many other factors, Ray Minkai would never have thought that the Klein family had such a past. After understanding this layer of relationship, Ray Minkai suddenly understood Lakis's decision. No matter what, even if Lakis' appearance, voice, and identity were stolen, she was still the future leader of the Klein family, the Klein faction. On a certain level, there were some secrets that no one knew about. She was an existence that outsiders could not replace. Because of this, when she discovered that she had been impersonated by a stranger, and that even her father did not notice any clues, Lakis could only think of this method. She headed to the place where the Klein family rose to prominence. "Hey, our knight. What are you thinking about?" Ray Minkai, who was thinking about the next plan of action, was hugged from behind by Mu. "Major Mu? You're late." Ray Minkai was taken aback at first, then he realized that he was already in Margot's captain's room. Mu chuckled and wagged his finger. "No, I'm not late. It's because you think too seriously about things. I've been standing there watching you for a while." After a fierce battle, Ray Minkai felt that Mu's attitude towards him had changed. The man in front of him, who was known as the strongest natural in the CE century, had indeed treated him as a comrade that he could entrust his life to. "Is that so? I'm just thinking about the next move. Major, the next battle will probably be even more intense." As soon as he heard Ray Minkai's words, Mu's expression immediately became solemn. Yes. Mu was very clear. The Archangel, the assault on Gouda, both were new equipment of the Earth Alliance Army. In order to prevent the Earth Alliance Army from obtaining these new equipment, Zaft had planned a series of actions and achieved certain success. Now they had switched to a new pilot who was also experienced and skilled. Even Mu, who was in their own camp, was shocked by the powerful combat power displayed by the attack on the Gundams, not to mention the Zaft fleet, which was the enemy. It was conceivable that the retreating Zaft fleet would inevitably gather more warships and more MS to destroy the Archangel and the assault on Gouda with overwhelming combat power. This would completely eliminate the opportunity for the Earth Alliance Army to obtain the new MS and new warship. "Let's see what the captain has to say." Mu sighed slightly. "Now the only people on the Archangel who can participate in the battle are you and me. Fortunately, Warrant Officer Kai, your combat power is far beyond my imagination. Attacking Gundam can be considered to have been entrusted to the right person. Maybe." After a short conversation, it was time for a short meeting held by Margot. The content of the meeting was not unexpected. In addition to a summary of the previous battle and a preventive plan for the next battle that might happen, it was the news that Ray Minkai expected. "The Earth Alliance Army has been contacted?" Mu was surprised. "Well, just a few minutes ago, before the Major and the Warrant Officer arrived here, there was news from the bridge that they had indeed been contacted." "It's just that." Margot nodded and then looked at Baki Lulu. Baki Lulu nodded and took over the topic. "The one who contacted us is Admiral Hal Barton of the 8th Fleet. Based on the current intelligence, the 8th Fleet has already sent an advance fleet to join our Archangel. According to the forecast, I'm afraid it will be in 48 hours. Hearing this news, Mu clapped his hands. "Great. In this way, the situation on the Archangel can be improved." However, Ray Minkai made a different sound. "No. Major Mu. I don't think the arrival of the advance fleet will change the situation. On the contrary, it may cause the enemy to increase their forces." Everyone was stunned. "Warrant Officer, can you tell us what you think?" Margot thought for a moment and asked. "In the previous battle, we did repel Zaft. However, think about the forces that Zaft invested in the previous battle. They were forces that dared to attack the Earth Alliance fleet." As soon as Ray Minkai spoke, Mu already knew what he meant. This was also the topic of discussion when the two stood at the door of the captain's room. "But this force was destroyed by us." "No, it should be said that after the assault Gouda driven by the Warrant Officer destroyed more than half of this force, Zaft's attention will probably be attracted. Especially at this time when both sides seem to have a large-scale truce." Margot and Baki Lulu understood the meaning of Ray Minkai and Mu as soon as they heard it, The reason why the Archangel was able to escape danger was because of Rei Minkai and the assault Gouda, but now it seemed that the battle that might happen next would become difficult because of this factor. That's it. In any case, being able to meet up with the advance fleet is good news for the Archangel. First Lieutenant, make the necessary arrangements. Yes. No matter what, it was time for this short meeting to end. In the following time, other than the routine combat preparation mission, Rei Minkai had a lot more time. Therefore, he spent most of his time walking around the Archangel with Lux. Perhaps because she made a decision, the smile on Lux's face gradually became more and more. Especially when she interacted with the children among the refugees, Lux, who had a strong affinity, could always play with the children. This change also made Rei Minkai breathe a sigh of relief. Then, Teacher Kai. Are you free now? Rei Minkai, who was standing at the side watching Lux and the little girl folding paper, suddenly heard someone call him. He turned around and saw Kira. And? It's Kira. There's no need to call me teacher. Just call me by my name. To me, being a teaching assistant is just a job. Kira's eyes were a little erratic, as if she had something to say to Rei Minkai. Come with me, Kira. You should have something to ask me. Rei Minkai retracted his gaze from Lux and turned around to bring Kira to the empty observation deck. No one will come here for the time being. Rei Minkai leaned on the railing and looked at the hesitant Kira with a smile. The current Kira was very easy to understand. Kira, do you want to ask about the attack on Gouda? No, Kira didn't know what to say when the words were on the tip of her tongue. In the end, Kira asked hesitantly. Old Kai, why did you sit in that Gouda? Don't you feel uncomfortable? Fighting is too unbearable. Uncomfortable? Probably. Rei Minkai shrugged and went forward to pat Kira's shoulder. But this is a battle to protect the people who are important to me. Before I die, I won't let the enemy harm the people who are incomparably important to me. But, is it because your friend was in the Zaft fleet that chased after Archangel? Is that why you resisted the attack on Gouda? Rei Minkai interrupted Kira's words. And yes, Kira. Most likely, your friend's family and friends died on Junius 7. So, to your friend, this battle is probably a battle of revenge. What? Eunice 7? At this moment, Kira thought of the huge space tombstone. Yes, Kira. This battle is just a whirlpool of hatred, leading all of humanity into the abyss of destruction. Words were unable to stop the war from coming to an end. The battlefield doesn't suit you. Kira Yamato. Chapter 548. In the boundless space, 5 Nazca-class high-speed warships gathered in a remote area, but they would not be on the route from the current location of the Archangel. At the same time, behind the 5 Nazca-class high-speed warships were 2 transport ships that replenished 3 of the Lost Gene's Nazca-class high-speed warship. Captain Kreutzer. 75% of the resupply operation has been completed. According to the current progress, all resupply operations will be completed in an hour. The CIC report made Kreutzer nod his head in satisfaction. The loss of the previous battle did not anger Patrick Sala, who currently controlled nearly half of the council. Instead, the chairman of the National Defense Council, who had just used the ferment of the Silver Wind attack to suppress his close friend and opponent, Siegel Klein, approved the replenishment plan for the Kreutzer fleet that had just been severely damaged. Of course, such a straightforward approval meant that there was only one answer. Do you want me to kill Longlegs as quickly as possible? Chairman, you really think highly of me. Kreutzer sat on the chair, carefully rubbing his chin, and the corner of his mouth curved into an arc. Gouda had suffered heavy injuries in the duel and had lost the ability to participate in the next battle. Aslan had suffered some injuries in the fierce battle. Although they were not serious, they had indeed affected Aslan's performance. Under such circumstances, if he wanted to kill the archangel that had the ability to attack Gouda, Kreutzer was afraid that he would have to make another plan. Is that Mu, that man's son, piloting that airframe? Kreutzer saw from the combat records of the 4 Gouda that the airframe seemed to have been reborn, erupting with powerful combat power to attack Gouda. However, from the aura that he felt from the attack on Gouda, Kreutzer was not sure that Mu was piloting the attack on Gouda. After pondering for a moment, Kreutzer smiled coldly. Forget it. At that time, it seems that I will have to personally take action. Otherwise, I won't be able to figure out who is piloting that airframe. On the other side, Yitzhak, Diego, and even Nigger stared blankly at Aslan, who had a bandage on his head, and the girl who was communicating with him about how to prepare the holy shield Gouda. A girl in red with a beautiful face. Hey, have you heard of such a red specter in Zaft? Yitzhak quietly elbowed Diego, who was standing beside him. Diego shook his head in a daze and looked at Nigger. Nigori raised his hands and waved them back and forth, indicating that he did not know either. What exactly is going on? Aslan, this guy, clearly has a fiancée, but he's still so close to a stranger? Izak's eyebrows twitched crazily, and a flame of fury rose in his heart. Fortunately, Diego, who was sharp-eyed and quick-handed, reached out and grabbed Yitzhak and pulled him away. Before leaving, he didn't forget to throw Nigger, don't ruin the scenery look. Nigger hesitated for a moment. As Aslan's good friend, he naturally knew about the engagement between Aslan and Lakis. But when he saw that Aslan and the girl in red seemed to be very familiar with each other, Nigger did not know what to say. Swaying left and right, Nigger finally sighed secretly and turned back to his Thunderbolt Gouda's cockpit, silently debugging the OS program. The red-clothed girl naturally noticed the commotion on this side as well. However, she did not expose it. Instead, she naturally pulled Aslan to talk about how to adjust the topic of Sacred Shield Gaudum. You're saying that the pilot of the Assault Gundam is good at close combat? His dexterous hands moved quickly on the keyboard, and the sound of his typing on the keyboard was like a crisp and pleasant music, making Aslan, who was sitting in the cockpit, slightly lost in thought. Yes. Aslan shook his head slightly to wake himself up, and said while recalling the original battle. The pilot of that airframe is very good at using high speed to fight, and his combat skills are unexpectedly strong. They're always able to launch attacks from unexpected places. Is that so? For this, do you want this child to fly faster? The girl in red's hands stopped flying on the keyboard, and her twinkling eyes also looked at Aslan, who was cooperating with her to debug the system. Aslan did not doubt her and nodded. Yes. Assault Gouda seems to get different performance according to the type of backpack. But Sacred Shield Gouda is an airframe developed for the purpose of high-speed combat, so there is no reason for Sacred Shield Gouda to be slower than Assault Gouda. The girl in red's mouth curled up slightly and said in a crisp voice, Is that so? In that case, I understand. So, it's okay now. As soon as her voice fell, the girl in red's finger had pressed the confirm button. The next second, the screen in front of Aslan suddenly turned black, and there was no response. Aslan just wanted to speak, but he was shocked by the screen that immediately lit up again, because, according to the previous startup time of the OS system, it was still at the stage of reading the system. But now, the OS system had been fully activated and entered the standby state. It's a surprise, right? The girl in red smiled mysteriously, and then began to pack up her notebook and tools. Then, she looked at Aslan, who had not yet reacted, and winked mischievously. You're really as dumb as always. But this is a special service that only you have, Aslan. It was not until the girl in red left that Aslan finally reacted. Special service? Looking at the system in the standby state in front of him, Aslan subconsciously began a new round of debugging. As a result, there was a sound that made Nigger poke his head out from the cockpit of Thunderbolt Gouda and look at Sacred Shield Gouda Aslan. What happened? No. Nothing. I just encountered some problems. After Aslan casually glossed over it, he showed a wry smile. The startup speed has increased by 2/3, and the program response time has been shortened by 3/4. This. Aslan was surprised, but he found that he seemed to have not asked for the name of the girl in red who came with the supply ship. It's just that, in the communication just now, that indescribable sense of familiarity still lingered in Aslan's heart. Who is she? Aslan's doubts did not last long before he was interrupted. Because a new battle was about to begin. At the other end of the boundless space, the advance squadron of the 8th Fleet, which had contacted the Archangel, finally arrived in front of the Archangel. The flagship of the 8th Fleet's advance squadron, the Nelson-class warship Montgomery, and the accompanying 2 Drake-class frigates Bernard and Law, had completed the task of rendezvous with the Archangel. The commander of this squadron was Colonel Kopman of the Atlantic Federation. Whether in terms of orders or military rank, his arrival undoubtedly made Margaret, the captain who was forced to do something beyond her ability, let out a long sigh of relief. A Nelson-class warship and 2 Drake-class frigates? In the past, this might be able to complete the task of escorting the Archangel to the main fleet. But, standing on the observation deck, Ray Minkai's gaze was always fixed on the Nelson-class warship. He knew that Flay's father, the Atlantic Federation's Foreign Affairs Secretary, George Alstar, was on this warship. His existence might be of great help to Ray Minkai and Lakis. But, before they could obtain this help, they would have to go through a fierce battle. Zaf's pursuers? Mu did not know what Ray Minkai was thinking. But he knew that Ray Minkai, to a certain extent, had the same worries as him. That fleet is probably the one led by Law Lu Kreutzer. That man won't be absent from the upcoming battle. Mu's expression became serious. Ever since he met Kreutzer, Mu had a premonition. No matter where he ran, Kreutzer would definitely be waiting for him in front, waiting to fight to the death with him. Law Lu Kreutzer? Originally, Ray Minkai had the chance to meet this extremely popular captain. But unfortunately, whether it was in the space administration of Xingyao City or in the current seed world, he had never had the chance to meet Kreutzer. Perhaps in the upcoming battle, we will fight against this legendary man. Major Mu, do you think that the advance squadron? Mu was stunned, then he spread out his hands, shook his head, and sighed. Spare me. If that man really comes personally, just protecting the Archangel will be difficult enough. As he said that, Mu's gaze became very serious. The enemy this time is far more terrifying than the previous ones. Yes, even more terrifying. Under the gaze of Ray Minkai and Mu, a shuttle glided out of the Montgomery and quietly flew to the Archangel. The changes in the world might happen inadvertently. Lakis, who had already become friends with the children on the Archangel, was surprised to see a man striding into the cafeteria under the protection of 2 armed soldiers. Flay. My daughter! Where are you? Flay. Lakis muttered to herself for a moment, and a spoiled and arrogant face involuntarily appeared in her mind. In private, Ray Minkai had once described Flay as a spoiled princess. Now, it seemed that Ray Minkai's evaluation was not wrong. Lakis glanced at the children, who were frightened by the 2 armed soldiers, and gently patted their backs. While comforting them, she looked up at the man and said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to let you go, mister. If you are looking for Miss Flay, she has already returned to her room 10 minutes ago." Is that so? Thank you." Upon hearing Lakis's words, the man who had excitedly barged into the cafeteria turned around and rushed out. No one knew where he ran to. All right. They have left. Don't be afraid. It's fine now." However, as Lakis comforted the children, a hint of sadness flashed past her eyes. Even though the man was a little rash, His love for Flay was real. It was so real that anyone could feel his love for Flay. This also made Lakis think of her father. Audrey, what happened to you? Why are the children like this? Just as Lakis was feeling sad about being separated from her father, Rei Minkai's voice rang out. Kai. Lakis was shocked. She immediately wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes. Unexpectedly, the children chattered and told Rei Minkai what had just happened. Looking for Flay's man? Is that so? That is Flay's father. He is just overly worried about Flay. Alright. Children, go back and look for your mother. After Rei Minkai learned of the matter and coaxed the children away, he extended his hand toward Lakis. Audrey, it is time to prepare. We are going to fight again? The traces of tears at the corners of Lakis' eyes were still clear. However, she had already returned to being the Lakis Klein that Rei Minkai was familiar with. Yes, in order for us to smoothly reach Scandinavia. The reunion between George and his daughter had not started for long before it was interrupted by a piercing alarm. Father! It's Zaft again. During this period of time, the delicate Flay had been scared witless by the battle with Zaft. Don't worry. The 8th Fleet will protect us. George comforted his daughter before looking at the soldiers beside him. One of you stay behind to protect Flay. The other one, bring me to the bridge. George, who knew what he should do at this moment, arranged a room for Flay before he turned around and headed to the bridge. However, before he was halfway there, he ran into Rei Minkai, who was heading toward Neku. You wait! On the Archangel, which was lacking in personnel, there were even fewer people wearing pilots' uniforms. When George saw the pilot's uniform on Rei Minkai, he immediately realized that the young man in front of him was the pilot who had piloted the assault on Gouda. You are the pilot of that new model? Rei Minkai stopped in his tracks and saluted. Yes, I am Kai Britannia. I volunteered to be the pilot who attacked Gouda. Yes, I have heard Captain Margaret's evaluation of you. I will leave the rest of the battle to you. Leave it to me. Looking at George's back as he headed to the bridge, the corners of Rei Minkai's mouth curled up slightly. Fate is always hard to understand. I originally thought that I would have to split my attention to protect the Montgomery while protecting the Archangel, but I realized that the target I wanted to protect had already run onto the Archangel. Searching high and low for the target? Kai, this is what your hometown says, right? State Zero's voice rang in Rei Minkai's mind. Obviously, it knew about Rei Minkai's plan. As long as George, the Atlantic Foreign Affairs Undersecretary, was saved, then Rei Minkai and Lakis' journey to Earth would be much easier. Of course. Now we just need to win this battle. Chapter 549. The shrill sound of the alarm stimulated everyone's hearing. Among them, Margaro and Bucky Lulu were relatively calm. In any case, the attack in front of them was expected. Especially when they saw the enemy's forces, the two couldn't help but look at each other. Lieutenant, what's the situation with the Major and the warrant officer now? They have arrived at Neku. They are preparing to board. Bucky Lulu paused, glanced behind her, and said softly, That's right. Sir George is on his way to the bridge. Well, I know. Inform the Major and the warrant officer to prepare for battle. Yes. When Assault Gouda attacked, he still chose to use artillery equipment. Thunderbolt, Tempest, and nearly 20 Xeons? There's also a Sig Gu. Warrant officer, it's that man. Mu, who was the first to attack, piloted the Mobius Zero and met with the 10 Mobius launched by the Montgomery, saw the signal that symbolized Sig Gu on the radar, and his face suddenly became interesting. The Infernal God's muzzle was raised high by Assault Gouda and pointed in the direction of the enemy. Isn't that what we've been expecting? It's just that the number of Xeon is less than we expected, which is good news. Mu smiled bitterly. Maybe. But there are 5 Nazca high-speed warships. If we only rely on the 3 warships of the advance fleet and the Archangel, I'm afraid it will be difficult to resist. Some things have to be tried to know the result. Ray Minkai raised his left hand, pressed several buttons on the operation screen, and sent a signal to the Archangel's bridge. Archangel. Data link normal. Can we start the attack? CIC Mirialia looked back at Bucky Lulu, and then gave a response with Bucky Lulu's acquiescence. Data link normal. Energy link normal. We can start the attack at any time. But please pay attention to the attack range of the Infernal God. Miriaria's warning was probably the result of Ray Minkai's unexpected attack from beyond the horizon. Ray Minkai just smiled faintly at this result. After responding, he once again joined forces with the White Cat. State 0 begin. Understood. The next second, the crosshair of the scope suddenly paused. The moment it was fixed above the screen, it shrank and turned red, which represented locked on. Cluck. Ray Minkai pressed his thumb, and a dazzling beam of light burst out in an instant, tearing through the darkness on the deck of the Archangel and rushing into the boundless space. An electrifying sensation engulfed Kreutzer's mind the moment the beam tore through the darkness, forcing Kreutzer to instinctively control Segura to dodge. Be careful! The attack is coming. Just as Kreutzer finished speaking, a Xeon at the back of the team exploded. It's that mech's attack again. Diego's eyelids twitched wildly as he looked at the unfortunate Jean. Everyone, disperse. A glimmer of interest flashed in Kreutzer's eyes. Compared to the few paragraphs mentioned in the report, Kreutzer believed more in the facts that he saw with his own eyes. The attack that subverted the range of the traditional concept was indeed amazing. Everyone, attack at will. Without hesitation, after confirming that the attack on Gauda could indeed attack beyond the horizon, Kreutzer did not hesitate to make the most suitable decision for the current situation. Swoosh! Swoosh! As all the mechs dispersed, beams of light burst out from the white dots in the distance that represented the Archangel and the advance squadron, directly blowing up and crippling several Xeons. Even if there was a trace of luck and the Xeon that was not blown up on the spot, he could only face the emergency evacuation of the pilot, abandoning the mech that was already scrapped and could explode at any time. Swoosh! A light flashed in front of Diego's eyes, and he subconsciously controlled Storm Gao Da's body as a violent tremor swept over. Boom! Diego! Nigger, who witnessed Storm Gao Da's left shoulder being blown up by Infernal God's attack, screamed and repeatedly called out his partner's name. I'm fine. It's just that my left shoulder is gone. Diego shook his dizzy head and endured the ringing in his ears as he said, Diego, can you hold on? At this time, Kreutzer controlled Higu to avoid an attack from Gao Da and asked Diego, Yes, Captain. I can still hold on. It's just that my left shoulder is gone. After all, Kreutzer was young and energetic. Kreutzer only needed a little stimulation, and the indignation in Diego's heart was enough for him to continue fighting. Very good. Keep moving. We're about to approach the enemy. He spoke quickly, but he did it slowly. While Kreutzer was leading his men to launch their assault, the assault Gundam had already used its cannons to fire no less than 20 shots. Although these attacks did not hit the target, they had already blown up Xeon and crippled at least 10 of them. From this result, Margaro and Bucky Lulu were already satisfied. In any case, the pressure of facing 10 Xeons and 20 Xeons was completely different. Moreover, in front of this number of Xeons, there were 2 Gauda and 1 Higu. Under such circumstances, to be able to reduce the enemy by 1 Xeon was to fight for a glimmer of hope for the final victory. Montgomery, Archangel, now I will lead Morbius to fight the enemy and try to cooperate with the attack on Gauda. At the moment when the attack on Gauda was successful, Mu was not willing to fall behind. He understood very well that the firepower suppression of the attack on Gauda gradually lost its effect as the enemy approached. In order to maximize the firepower of the attack on Gouda, he had to slow down the enemy's approach as much as possible. "I'll leave it to you, Major Mu." Colonel Kopman of the advance squadron nodded. After exchanging opinions with Marguerite, he approved Mu's action. So, with Morbius Zero as the lead, 10 Morbius followed the group of mechs and rushed towards the group of mechs led by Kreutzer. Whoosh! The moment the distance between the two reached a certain threshold, 2 lightning flashed through Mu's and Kreutzer's minds almost simultaneously. "That orange Massachusetts? Is that you? Mu? Higu? La Lu Kreutzer." The moment the silver-white MS and the orange Morbius Zero crossed each other, the two had already recognized each other's identity. However, Higu did not seem to have the intention to fight with Morbius Zero. Instead, he chose to go straight to the Archangel. "Kreutzer, don't even think about running." "Humph. Mu, I'll spare you today. I have more important things to do." Higu suddenly turned over and raised the 76mm heavy assault machine gun in his hand and aimed it at the Morbius Zero that was trying to stop him from approaching the Archangel. 222. Kreutzer's accurate shooting made Mu feel pressured. He had to give up on turning around and chose to speed up to escape from Higu's attack range. This was also a helpless choice made due to the disadvantage of the Morbius Zero. Although the Morbius Zero's maneuverability was excellent, its armor was so vulnerable in the face of Zeon, Higu and the other Zaft MSTSK. 6:1 combat power ratio? Mu looked at Higu, who easily forced him to retreat. He could not help but clench his teeth and turned around again to chase. As for the other Morbius, they followed the original arrangement and tried their best to stop Thunderbolt Gouda, Storm Gouda and the other Zeons from approaching the Archangel. During this period, the Assault Gundam's attacks were still interspersed between the gaps of the Morbius fleet's attack. While sniping down Zeon, who had revealed an opening, they also provided Morbius with a certain amount of firepower. However, this situation did not last long. Because that man was coming. The battle against the MS begins. Balkan Vulcan Cannon. Lock onto the enemy's body and fire freely. Adjust the anti-aircraft missiles to automatic firing mode. Pay attention to the coordination with the Montgomery. Do not let the enemy get close. When Bakiliolu saw Higu rushing over, she immediately issued a command loudly. In her opinion, as long as the Archangel could coordinate with the advance fleet led by the Montgomery, a single MS would not be able to get close to the Archangel. However, she did not know that Higu did not intend to directly attack the anti-aircraft fire net created by the 3 warships, the Archangel and the Montgomery. Really calm. Under Kreutzer's control, Higu cleverly made a turn in front of the anti-aircraft fire net. While flying rapidly, Higu's single eye that was sliding to the right saw him as nothing. He was still standing calmly on the deck of the Archangel, holding the Inferno God to attack the Zeons. Higu locked onto Gouda. At this time, the Morbius Zero that was chasing closely behind Higu finally found an opportunity to lock onto Higu, who was circling around the anti-aircraft fire net. The moment Mu's crosshair turned red, he decisively pulled the trigger. The Morbius Zero's linear gun suddenly screeched. Of course, the Morbius Zero's attack was nothing to Higu. Kreutzer just lightly stepped on the pedal and Higu rolled to the left to avoid the Morbius Zero's shot. It's not over yet. The Morbius Zero's attack was far from over. The pod equipped on its body was instantly unlocked. With the help of the thrusters, it quickly occupied the best angle of attack and launched a fierce attack on Higu. Humph, you have some skills. However, this still can't hurt me. Mu. Higu suddenly pulled up and followed up with a somersault. He swung the muzzle and fired 3 consecutive shots at the pod that had just finished changing its angle of attack and had not yet had the time to launch an attack. The 76mm heavy assault machine gun spat out flames, and the Morbius Zero lost its first pod since the start of the battle. TSK. My attack was seen through? Mu had a bad feeling. Although the pod equipped by Mobius Zero could achieve a surprise attack, to an ace, these cable-connected pods were nothing more than a target. Mu, is this all you've got? After a successful attack, Kreutzer immediately began to pursue the victory. 222. Another 3 consecutive shot. The second pod exploded with a bang. Seeing that the situation was not good, Mu did not dare to stay. Instead, he took advantage of the Morbius Zero's reduced weight and accelerated to the limit in one breath. He once again used the method of widening the distance and waiting for an opportunity to attack. Kreutzer naturally would not let Mu's wishful thinking succeed. But the moment Higu wanted to pursue the Morbius Zero, a dazzling light beam suddenly blocked Higu's front. And this attack. When Kreutzer's gaze landed on the deck of the Archangel again, he saw a different scene from before. Did they change the backpack system? Yes. Taking advantage of the Morbius Zero and Higu's entanglement, Rei Minkai followed the original plan and suppressed the number of Xeon to the number that the advanced B Squadron could withstand. After that, he immediately gave up on continuing to use the artillery equipment and changed to the wing equipment. From the current situation, as long as Higu was restrained, the advanced B Squadron and Archangel's joint anti-air firepower network would be able to hold on for a period of time. And this period of time was the key to whether Rei Minkai could defeat Higu and Kreutzer. With a shield in one hand and a beam rifle in the other, with the propulsion provided by the wing backpack, Assault Gauda flew from the deck of the Archangel to the sky and took the initiative to rush towards Higu. Looking at Assault Gauda rushing towards him, Kreutzer's lips curled up slightly. Is this an invitation? Interesting. Although he said so, Kreutzer did not dare to blindly engage in close combat with Assault Gauda 222. Assault Gauda rushed straight down, while Higu retreated rapidly under the roar of the 76mm heavy assault machine gun in his hands. Kai, this guy wants to distance himself. Without needing State Zero's reminder, Rei Minkai had already seen through Higu's plan. While adjusting his breathing slightly, Assault Gauda's muzzle had already moved and locked onto the 76mm heavy assault machine gun in Higu's hands. 1. The 76mm heavy assault machine gun in Higu's hands suddenly exploded in a flash of light. What? Coincidence? The 76mm heavy assault machine gun that suddenly exploded stunned Kreutzer for a moment. But in the next second, Kreutzer immediately controlled Higu to raise the Grim shield fixed on his left arm. Regardless of whether the 76mm heavy assault machine gun was coincidentally destroyed or not, Kreutzer only had one thing to do now, and that was to maintain the suppression of Assault Gauda's firepower and not let him get close. Thus, the 28mm Vulcan cannon installed inside the Grim shield roared crazily, and the terrifying destructive subshells poured down on Assault Gauda. Facing such a terrifying hail of bullets, Assault Gauda's left hand moved and blocked the 28mm Vulcan cannon's attack with the shield in front of him. Even though Assault Gauda was temporarily immune from the 28mm Vulcan cannon's attack, Assault Gauda's shield might not be able to hold on for long if the battle dragged on. Rei Minkai's legs crossed on the pedals, and Assault Gauda's body suddenly sank. He actually used the hail of bullets from the 28mm Vulcan cannon as the axis and accelerated towards Higu in a spiral pattern. During this time, Rei Minkai naturally did not forget to use Assault Gauda's beam rifle to shoot out beams of light that obstructed Higu's movement. With a dash and a delay, Assault Gauda had already rushed to the front of Higu. Just as they were about to engage in close combat, Higu unexpectedly threw the Grim shield in his hands towards Assault Gauda without hesitation. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the Grim shield thrown out by Sig-Gu and the Assault Gundam's shield fiercely clashed together. Chapter 550. As the rotating shield collided with each other, a cold light quietly blossomed. However, this cold light that appeared when the two shields collided didn't have any effect on the assault Gundam. Because, when it went straight to Gao Da's cockpit, Gao Da, who reacted in time, used the inertia of the shield collision to catch the cold light tightly. Oh, good reaction! The true face of the cold light was not anything else, but the M4A heavy cleave sword equipped by Sig-Gu. In the previous colonial satellite battle, Mu Sua's Mobius Zero was almost forced to a dead end by this heavy cleave sword. However, Kreutzer, who wanted to use the collision of the shields to pierce through Gao Da's cockpit, obviously failed. Sparks continued to burst between Gao Da's left hand and the heavy cleave sword. Due to Gao Da's powerful force, the heavy cleave sword in Sig-Gu's hand did not move forward even a little bit. This power is really amazing. Kreutzer's eyes flashed coldly, his hands and feet moved continuously, and quickly took the next step. In the next second, Sig-Gu raised his left leg and kicked at Gao Da. But when Sig-Gu's kick was halfway through, an explosion suddenly exploded. In the violent tremor of the explosion and the rising smoke, Kreutzer saw Sig-Gu's broken left leg. And the culprit that caused this scene was the beam rifle in Gao Da's hand. Well done. I'm really curious who you are. Kreutzer, who made a prompt decision, took advantage of the smoke rising from Sig-Gu's broken left leg to quickly widen the distance. He controlled Sig-Gu to raise the heavy cleave sword in his hand and pointed it at Gao Da. Logically speaking, Sig-Gu was now seriously injured and had lost all his long-range weapons. Only the heavy cleave sword in his hand was better than nothing. And Gao Da still had the beam rifle, which was a great threat. For Kreutzer, this was no doubt a desperate situation. But Kreutzer did not treat this as a problem. Humph, this is really fun. The mysterious pilot of the Joint Army. I'm afraid even we can't disperse the performance of that airframe to such an extent. Who are you? With such ability, I'm afraid even our adjusters are no better than this, right? Kreutzer's voice sounded unscrupulously on the international public channel, surprising Mu, the Archangel, the Montgomery, and even Neger Diego, and the others on their side. Captain! What the hell is he doing? Taking advantage of the opportunity when Nigger and Diego were shocked by Kreutzer's words, Mu, who had been chased by the two of them, decisively accelerated to get rid of the Thunderbolt Gundam and the Storm Gundam. However, before Mu could heave a sigh of relief, Kreutzer's words triggered a wave of worry in his heart. This bastard! From the moment Lei Mingkai appeared on the Archangel, Mu knew that the young man was hiding something. But Mu knew that the problem of whether the Archangel could survive under Zaf's pursuit was that both sides had common interests. Therefore, no matter why Lei Mingkai was able to attack Gao Da in a short period of time and successfully defeat the enemy, or why he concealed his identity, Mu and even Maureen maintained a tacit understanding and did not pursue this matter. However, at this crucial moment, Cruz had actually pointed out the crux of the matter. Gentlemen of the Montgomery, please don't have any unnecessary thoughts. As Mobius State Zero accelerated towards the Archangel, Mu muttered to himself, Captain! Below the Archangel, a distance of 1,000, an unknown signal suddenly appeared. Mirialia, who was nervously staring at the screen, exclaimed, It's the Holy Shield? No. So fast. This speed is 3 times faster than Xeon. What? Mirialia's exclamation surprised Bakilialu, but she was far calmer than Mirialia. She immediately ordered, Under the hull, lock onto the enemy, fire at will. Switch the target of the anti-aircraft missiles, lock onto the Holy Shield Gao Da. In addition, reflective beam explosion, fire. In the blink of an eye, under the command of Buggy Lulu, the 2 bar guns under the hull of the Archangel quickly locked onto the enemy attacking from below and frantically shot out flames. At the same time, the reloaded anti-aircraft missiles did the same. As the core of the defense, The Archangel was already like this, not to mention the vanguard fleet led by the Montgomery. Like the Archangel, part of the anti-aircraft forces were transferred below. However, the firepower formed by the two Barber missiles of the Drac-class frigate was unable to stop the enemy's attack from below. In the blink of an eye, a red phantom circled half a circle around the dense anti-aircraft firepower created by the Archangel and turned to stare at the Drac-class frigate outside the fleet. Boom! As a dazzling red light tore through the darkness, the Drac-class frigate that was penetrated by the red light beam exploded on the spot. That's the Holy Shield Gouda? How can it be so powerful? It destroyed the Lao in one blow? As the red phantom drew a red trajectory between the flames and the darkness, Margaret, who had some understanding of the performance of the Holy Shield Gouda, widened her eyes in disbelief. Captain, we must strengthen the defense. Recall the attack on Gouda. The sinking of the Lao also put a lot of pressure on Bakilialu. Recall the attack on Gouda. Also, prepare the sword equipment. There shouldn't be much energy left for the attack on Gouda now. Margaret, who quickly recovered from her shock, decisively gave the latest order. Obviously, Margaret was not affected by Kreutzer's words, but those who might be affected by Kreutzer's words gritted their teeth and persevered under the strong pressure brought by the Holy Shield Gouda. Boom! The Holy Shield Gouda, who once again seized the opportunity, sent the other Drac-class frigate, Bernard, to hell without hesitation. The two fireballs that swallowed most of the power of the Vanguard fleet at this moment deeply stung the eyes of the commander of the Vanguard fleet, Colonel Kopman. Archangel, please break out immediately. I will cover you. Without hesitation, Kopman understood what he needed to do. Especially when the Atlantic Foreign Affairs Undersecretary George, whom he cared about, was also on the Archangel, he was even more determined to take the next step. As for Kreutzer's words that had caused him to waver a little, he could just let it go to hell. Colonel Kopman, however, before the Montgomery that Kopman was on could fully accelerate to the front of the Archangel, the red phantom that sent the Lao and Bernard to hell appeared again and aimed the 580 mm multiple-phase energy cannon that could sink a Drac-class frigate at the bridge of the Montgomery. The light of death rose at this moment. Damned regulator! In front of his eyes was the light of death. Kopman did not choose to face the enemy's attack like a coward, but chose to watch everything angrily. Boom! The light of death emitted by Holy Shield Gouda rose to the most dazzling moment, and the judgment of fate also fell. The dazzling alarm sounded in his ears, and the hull that was constantly shaking violently under his feet, but he was still alive. Kopman was stunned, but he was surprised to see an airframe resolutely blocking the front of the Montgomery and blocking the enemy's attack. It turned out that at the critical moment just now, Assault Gouda, who returned in time, used the shield in his hand to block the 580 mm multiple-phase energy cannon from Holy Shield Gouda's abdomen. But the price of blocking Holy Shield Gouda's attack was that the shield was directly scrapped, and the remaining energy was about to be exhausted. Casually tossing away the melted shield in its hands, the assault Gundam raised its beam rifle and fired 3 consecutive shots at the Holy Shield Gundam, forcing the Holy Shield Gundam to retreat as it attempted to launch another attack. Montgomery, cover me! Ray Minkai looked at Holy Shield Gouda, who left a red trail on the screen like a meteor, and couldn't help but frown. This is the trump card that Kreutzer has been hiding? The modified Holy Shield Gouda? Holy Shield Gouda's abnormality at the moment was undoubtedly a trace of artificial influence. Have you seen through it? But, Aslan, thank you very much this time. At the edge of the battlefield, the injured Heg-Gu quickly escaped from the battlefield under the protection of 2 Xeon. The magnificent feat of the Holy Shield Gundam destroying 2 Drake frigates the moment it appeared made the assault Gundam decisively turn back to defend the Archangel. Even if Higu was only left with the heavy sword in his hand, the one piloting it was Lu Kreutzer, a man who couldn't be underestimated. As long as Kreutzer delayed assault Gao Da's time, then, the next thing that would happen would be Lei Ming watching the advance fleet being eliminated by Holy Shield Gauda, and then Archangel would be besieged by 3 Gauda and the remaining Zeon. Those Morbius? Other than Mu's Morbius Zero, Rei Minkai didn't see them as an effective fighting force from the beginning to the end. After receiving the return of the Assault Gundam, the situation of the Montgomery improved. However, there was still a problem that needed to be solved. That would mean that the Assault Gundam had run out of energy. Warrant Officer, do as you wish. Montgomery will cover you with all its might. Okay. Without hesitation, under Rei Minkai's control, Assault Gauda used the last bit of energy to propulsion to get as close to Archangel as possible. At the same time, Rei Minkai sent out a signal. Archangel, fire the sword equipment. After a fierce battle, the backpack equipment that Assault Gauda could use was only the sword equipment. Rei Minkai had always regarded this as a backpack that should not be used in space. You want to change your backpack? Don't even think about it. Aslan, who was more familiar with the modified Holy Shield Gauda, saw Assault Gauda's movement and immediately turned his gun to aim at Assault Gauda. As long as Assault Gauda, who was in a state of energy depletion, was removed from his flying equipment, this battle would come to an end. But reality was cruel. Just as Holy Shield Gauda was about to use the old trick again, Mu's attack followed closely. Mobius Zero's remaining 2 pods were released by Mu, and he took advantage of the gap when the Holy Shield Gundam was aiming at the Assault Gundam to make a decisive move. TSK. You're in the way. The attack from Morbius Zero forced Aslan to give up his plan to continue sniping Gauda and had to avoid Morbius Zero's attack. With this, Holy Shield Gauda not only lost the opportunity to snipe Gauda, but also fell into the entanglement of Morbius Zero. Aslan. Gauda, who had blown up a Morbius, tried to come over to support Aslan, but was forced back by the artillery fire from Archangel. TSK. Nigal, cover me. Diego, who had been harassed by Morbius for a long time, had a ball of fire in his heart. He wanted to stuff this anger into the barrel and hit the Archangel fiercely. As said before, whenever Storm Gauda showed the intention to attack the Archangel and Montgomery, the remaining Morbius would inevitably launch a fearless attack, giving Diego a headache. Hey! You guys, use your Zeon to get rid of these flies. As soon as Diego finished speaking, a flash of light drew out of the void without any warning, breaking a Jean who was chasing after Morbius at the waist. Boom! In the midst of Zeon's exploding fireball, a huge blade slashed across the air, cutting another Zeon that could not dodge in time into 2. Has the change of equipment been completed? Aslan, who was entangled by Mu, gritted his teeth, and a trace of regret flashed in his eyes. If he had not been decisive just now, the 2 Zeons would never have met such an end. That's right. The murderer who had used the beam boomerang and the battleship slicing saber to kill 2 Zeon was Assault Gauda, who had already changed into sword equipment. Nigal, cover me. As soon as he saw Assault Gauda with the battleship slicing saber in hand, Diego immediately began to attack without saying a word. He was fast, but Rei Minkai was faster. Just as Storm Gauda raised the armor scatter cannon formed by the weapons held by his left and right arms, the arc of light that had cut off Zeon's waist strangely appeared again. Diego, be careful. Nigal's reminder was timely, but Diego's reaction was still half a beat slower, allowing Storm Gauda to avoid the damage to his vital parts, but he encountered the exact same result as Cruz. Storm Gauda's feet were neatly cut off. Diego. Nigal was worried that Assault Gauda would pursue Storm Gauda, so he launched an attack without hesitation, allowing Thunderbolt Gauda to raise the beam rifle in his hand to block Assault Gauda's assault. Almost at the same time, Seeing that Diego's storm Gauda was damaged, Aslan finally got rid of Morbius's entanglement and returned to his partner's side. With the huge battleship slicing Saber in front of him, Assault Gauda was not afraid to confront the 3 Gauda and the remaining Zeon. In the distance, where the Zaft fleet was located, the tricolor signal flares rose into the air, ending the battle. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.